Chapter 98. Fu Yun comforted him, "When you grow up, the account will belong to you." Wen was secretly sad. He felt that he was not comforted at all. The account of tens of millions of fans did not belong to him yet. He was very sad that he had lost it. He was no longer a child. He had self-control and would never spout nonsense on the internet. Unfortunately, no one believed him. Fu Yun saw that he was in low spirits, so she asked him to read the comments on her phone. She skimmed through the comments. There were no sour words. They were all good comments, so it was fine for Wen to read more. Wen took the phone and was overjoyed. He hurriedly read the comments one by one seriously. Compared to his previous life, every time he posted something on social media, the comment section would be filled with bloodshed. His fans were basically beaten up in the end. The comments now were very warm. If his diehard fans in his previous life saw this, they might be very gratified. Perhaps they had seen it now. No, most of his fans in his previous life might still be drinking milk and going to school. Some might not even be born yet. Wen suddenly could not help but laugh. Perhaps he was still going to school with his diehard fans in his previous life. Fu Yun saw that Wen was reading seriously, and her expression softened. Sai Yu saw a hot comment under the trending search. A netizen had taken a screenshot of his and Fu Yun's conversation and put it together. "Cloud rolling clouds, my little cutie. Thank you for your support. Sai Yu, yes, my little cutie. Hey, I seem to have discovered something." There were a bunch of replies under the hot comment. It was very lively. "Warning, your account is gone. Your account is gone. Do you think we don't want to? But reality doesn't allow it. Let's see when this account is gone." In the end, after a few hundred comments, this comment was still there. Sai Yu's fans suddenly realized something and quickly formed a group. The number of people kept increasing. The 2,000 people group was filled in an instant. However, the chat was quiet and no one spoke. After a while, someone asked tentatively, "So, we really hit the jackpot?" "Probably. Sisters, I just went to test the waters and posted some gossip about Brother Yu and a female artist. How is it?" It was deleted in 3 seconds. Then they looked at the comments that were still high up in the trending section and sighed meaningfully. The fans couldn't be blamed for thinking the wrong way. Some of them had been following Sai Yu since its debut. Over the past 10 years, what had they not encountered? Any comments that attempted to create a scandal with Sai Yu, or any netizens who tried to couple Sai Yu online, were quickly deleted. Most of the time, they couldn't even be posted. Their fans were quiet and didn't cause any trouble. Compared to the fans of other celebrities who openly declared their love lines, these small moons were miserable. They had to be secretive even if they wanted to declare their love lines. Even if there were fans who fell into the trap later on, the older fans would still explain and quietly abide by the rules. Those who didn't listen to the rules and caused trouble were removed from the fan list. From the beginning, the team had regulated their fan group to not create any scandals. They also knew that Sai Yu didn't have any gossip to begin with. This was because the company spent a lot of money on PR every year to deal with these matters. They secretly guessed that Sai Yu might be a relative of the big boss of Apple Entertainment. However, they didn't get any confirmation, so they just let it go. It was easy to be a fan of a celebrity who didn't cause trouble. However, they didn't have the chance to fight all year round. Occasionally, they would see fans of other celebrities fighting over their idol online. Then, they would look at their own fans. They were peaceful and worry-free. Countless times, they felt how lonely it was to be invincible. When they discovered that Sai Yu and Fu Yun's interactions were very ambiguous and warm, they vaguely felt that something was going on. However, after so many years of habit, they didn't dare to say anything even if they could tell. Now, they actually found out that when they tried to pair Sai Yu and Fu Yun together and tried to form a CP, they weren't blocked or deleted. What did this mean? It meant that they were real. However, even if they knew, they were still very calm. They didn't go around making a fuss. Instead, they happily discussed what they should name this CP. The group of people was very lively in their discussion. As for whether they were worthy or not, their idol was already over 30 years old. What was wrong with dating? They had already prepared for their idol to come out of the closet. Now that they found out that there was a living female living by his side, they had no objections. Why did they feel an inexplicable sense of regret? Yu didn't know or care about the private affairs of his fans. He stood beside Yun in a relaxed manner. His tone was very proud. Our son is very impressive. Our son. Yun looked up and glanced at Yu. She couldn't refute and could only agree. Yun looked at Wen. He has always been very good. However, after being happy, Yun was worried that becoming famous too early would bring immeasurable changes to Wen's life. She didn't know if it was a good or bad thing. Yu seemed to have seen her worry and said steadily, "I'll take care of everything." Yun turned her head and met Yu's gentle eyes. She suddenly felt that it was quite good to have someone to share the responsibility of raising a child with. Yun had always been worried that she didn't know how to raise a child and was afraid that she would raise the child astray. Yu was so outstanding. He would definitely be a good role model. Her heartstrings loosened a little. Yu and Yun looked at the child at the side and chatted from time to time. Although they didn't talk much, there was an inexplicable peaceful scene. Yun saw that it was about time and quickly took the phone back. She couldn't let the child come into contact with electronic products for too long. She tried her best not to let the child play with them. Otherwise, it would easily affect the child's vision. Wen was reluctant to part with the phone, but he was obedient and didn't play with it. It was a pity that time passed so quickly. He felt that he didn't look at it for long. After being happy, Wen suddenly realized that the atmosphere between his mother and Yu was inexplicably harmonious and friendly. He was instantly alert. Was Yu coaxing his mother again when he wasn't looking? No, he had to watch. Yu. What was this little rascal thinking of again? Wen started to stick to Yun. He turned into a little tail and followed her wherever she went. Before he started school, he used to stick to his mother like this. Wen missed it. Yun didn't know what Wen was thinking. She saw that Wen had nothing to do all day. She thought for a while and asked, "Do you want to go back to the village to play?" Yun thought that Wen would be on summer vacation for 2 months. He could go back to the village to play for 10 days to half a month before coming back. But Yun thought of the mess here. It shouldn't be a problem for her to leave for 10 days to half a month. Children were more important. Wen's eyes lit up. Yun's words reminded Wen of his brothers and uncles in the village. However, he thought of the long and inconvenient journey. He thought of his mother's serious illness at the beginning of the year. He didn't want his mother to be tired again. Hence, he shook his head and said considerately, "Let's go back after the new year." Moreover, it would be very tiring to take the bus back and forth on such a hot day. They would have to transfer a few times. Yun patted Wen's head. "Then, why don't you invite the children you know here to play?" This was a good idea. Wen's eyes lit up. "Can I invite Kang, Dodo, Lulu, to our house as guests?" Wen counted his classmates who were on good terms with him. After careful calculation, the people he wanted to invite accounted for more than half of the class. Yun asked him to think about how to entertain the children. Should we entertain the children at the flower bed? Or at home? What activities are there? Yun encouraged him to make a plan. Wen thought about it seriously. He had too many things to do. His longing for his friends in the village was diluted. Hence, Wen ran to get a pen and paper to make a plan. 2 hours later, Wen took the written plan and ran to Yun excitedly. Then, he said, "I've decided. I want to entertain my friends at home." Wen thought about it carefully. Although the flower bed was bigger and more beautiful, it was summer now. They couldn't play outside as it was easy to get heat stroke. Moreover, there was no place suitable for children to play. Home was different. The area of the house was not small. More than 10 friends could walk around. He also had a special entertainment room and a courtyard. Otherwise, they could go to the amusement park in the community to play. The security of the community was very high. They were not afraid that the children would go out and get lost. They could play in the amusement park for the whole afternoon. However, he would have to trouble his mother at noon. She had to be responsible for the children's lunch. They will come over from 9:30 to 10 in the morning. I will take them to the courtyard to play. Then, they will play in the entertainment room on the second floor. After lunch, they will rest for an hour and a half. Then, they will go to the amusement park in the community to play. After 4 o'clock, the children will go home. Fu Yun patted Wen Wen's head and praised, "Well, Wen Wen's plan is really good." After getting Fu Yun's approval, Wen Wen was extremely proud. Hence, he first discussed the time of the treat. Because this plan was quite sudden, it might be a little rushed if it was too early. Therefore, it was arranged to be 5 days later. This was the first time Wen Wen officially invited his friends to play. He was quite nervous. Wen Wen had their contact information. Hence, accompanied by Fu Yun, he called them one by one to invite them. In the end, except for a few who were on vacation overseas, the rest guaranteed to come. Just as Wen Wen was excitedly waiting for the treat, Sayu had a chance to get close to Fu Yun. Sayu looked at the potted plants around him. Seeing that Fu Yun was busy, he picked up the watering can at the side and prepared to help water them. Fu Yun turned her head and saw Sayu holding the watering can. The nozzle was already aimed at the soil of the potted plants and was about to water them. Fu Yun's heart skipped a beat. "Stop it." Sayu turned his head with a puzzled expression. "What's wrong?" Fu Yun was very nervous. "Don't move. Don't move." "Okay." Although he was puzzled, Sayu obediently maintained his position and did not move. Fu Yun carefully went over, pressed down on the nozzle, and took the watering can over. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she saw it in time. Otherwise, she would have been scolded if Uncle Guo's most precious flower had been killed. It was nothing to be scolded, but it would be heartbreaking to see such a beautiful flower die. "These orchids don't need to be watered." Sayu pointed to the signboard beside the orchids. "It says how much water should be watered at this time." He was not watering them carelessly. "Let me do it," Fu Yun said with a headache. Did this plant killer not know what was going on? He had been unable to raise the flowers for so many years. He had been blaming the sky, the earth, the air, the environment, and even the way he planted the flowers was weird. Yet, he had never looked for the reason himself. Wen Wen had learned this very well. "I just want to help you." Sayu's voice unconsciously carried a hint of grievance. "You standing by the side is the greatest help you can give me." Ha ha ha. Wen Wen looked up. Before he could get angry at Sayu for getting close to his mother while he was not paying attention, he gloated and mocked him. "Serves you right. Mother will never give you a chance to get close to Hua Hua. You want to help mother work to please her? Impossible, haha." Sayu looked at Wen Wen indifferently. "Did you raise the flowers?" The laughter stopped abruptly. Wen Wen pulled a long face and looked at him expressionlessly. This time, it was Sayu's turn to mock him mercilessly. "Fu Yun." Both of them were about the same. Let's not talk about each other. Was it really good to hurt each other like this? Wen Wen could not win against Sayu, but he was still a child. Thus, he ran to Fu Yun's side and hugged her thigh. "Mother, he bullied me." "That's right, he could still complain. He's too annoying. Let's not bother about him, okay?" Wen Wen acted cute and coquettishly. Fu Yun immediately felt dizzy and agreed to anything. Wen Wen looked at her proudly. Sayu secretly gritted his teeth. He looked at Wen Wen, who was acting cute, and suddenly said, "Wen Wen should start learning. Why don't I hire a few tutors?" Originally, Sayu thought that he should wait until the child was 5 years old before starting his lessons. That way, he could relax for a year. Now, he felt that the child was still too free. Sayu came to the flower bed every day to report, but he did not have the chance to get close to Fu Yun. Wen Wen protected Fu Yun like she was protecting her own child. He did not even have the chance to get close to her. Thus, Sayu and Fu Yun discussed the child's learning during the summer vacation. When Fu Yun heard this, she was instantly attracted. What tutor? Of course, she felt that it would be better if Wen Wen could learn as much as possible. She heard that children nowadays were not considered outstanding if they did not learn 2 or 3 hobbies and a specialty. However, Fu Yun was worried. Isn't it too early? Why don't we wait until primary school? Sai Yu said seriously, it's not early. The child is very smart. I started learning when I was 3 years old. Don't worry, the first 2 years of teaching were very easy. You can watch from the side. If you feel that it's unacceptable, you can watch from the side. Fu Yun was very tempted. Sai Yu said, doesn't Wen like to act? Learning some musical instruments and dancing will be very useful for his development. Fu Yun nodded in agreement. This was the big boss of the entertainment industry. He was the most qualified to speak. Every word of his experience was worth 1,000 gold. Fu Yun almost wanted to take notes. Fu Yun could not help but be curious. What are you good at? Sai Yu said, piano, violin. I know a little about the saxophone. I don't have any specialty. It's mainly to nurture an elegant artistic temperament and learn the ability to appreciate music. He had always been the one to appreciate other people's music. Other than in front of his family, he had never played music for anyone. No one could make him take the initiative to show his skills. But now, there was one. Sai Yu smiled at Fu Yun and said, when I have time, I'll play the piano for you. Fu Yun smiled and did not respond. Instead, she lowered her head to ask for Wen's opinion. What musical instrument do you like to learn? Piano. Fu Yun's first thought was this instrument. She imagined Wen sitting in front of the piano gently when he grew up, playing a moving melody. God, it was too beautiful. He was simply the little prince of the piano. Wen was horrified. It was fine if he had to go to kindergarten, but he still had to study and learn his specialty. Then wouldn't he not have any holidays? He was still a child. However, before he could express his opinion, Sai Yu also looked over and suggested, take a few days of musical instrument lessons first. See which one you like. Fu Yun nodded. That's fine too. Just by saying that, Wen might not even know what musical instruments were and what the differences were. It was better to let Wen experience it first before making a choice. I know a teacher in this field. When the time comes, I'll contact him and arrange a time to come over to take a look. Fu Yun did not know anyone in this field. Since Sai Yu knew someone who was more trustworthy, she did not argue and directly agreed. Wen? Couldn't he give his opinion just because he was young? Wen said loudly, I want to learn the piano. I want to learn the violin. I also want to play the erhu. Wen remembered that in his previous life, he did not have the conditions to learn these. He even embarrassed himself at a banquet and was mocked for a long time. Now that these were mentioned, Wen's unhappy memories were evoked. He thought to himself that if he had the chance in this life, he would definitely learn a profession. Fu Yun looked over and asked worriedly, won't it be too tiring to learn so many things at once? Let's take it slow and learn the piano first. Sai Yu also agreed. Mastering music is easy. Once you learn how to play 1 or 2 musical instruments, you will be able to learn the rest very quickly. It was just the difference between a professional and an amateur. However, since Wen did not have the intention to shine in the music industry, it was enough for him to learn about an amateur. Since Wen had already made up his mind, there was no need to let the tutor visit one by one. Sai Yu directly called the piano tutor and asked him to come over at 3:30 p.m. the next day. He also made a private call. So urgent. Fu Yun heard that it was tomorrow. I haven't bought a piano for Wen yet. Then she would have to go to the musical instrument store to buy a piano tonight. There's no need to buy one. I have a piano at home. Sai Yu said, I'll get someone to send it over tomorrow. This. Fu Yun hesitated. Wen is also my child. I should do anything for him. Sai Yu looked at Fu Yun and said, you have to get used to it. She did have to get used to it. No matter what, he was still Wen's father. Wen poured cold water on him. No way. Mom, let's buy it ourselves. Wen glared at Sai Yu. It was said that gifts blind one's eyes. If he accepted more things from him, her mother would be even more embarrassed to reject him. Wen thought that it was because she had asked him to bring him to the audition. If he came over to make his presence known, her mother would be too embarrassed to chase him away. Okay. We'll buy it ourselves. Yu was speechless. He smiled and said, since the child needs to learn, why don't you not waste your time in the morning and learn something else? Yun was speechless. Wen said, I won't. However, Wen's protest was useless. Yu was unusually firm and there was no room for discussion. Yun also had objections. Yu explained gently, it's a very relaxing and enjoyable class. You won't be tired. You can watch it for a few days. If you feel that there's a problem, we'll cancel it. Yun had no choice but to agree. She could only express her helplessness towards Wen's resistance. Early the next morning, a few tall young men in black trousers and jackets carried a piano over. Under Wen's resolute protest and Yu's insistence, Yun was in a dilemma. In the end, she thought of a compromise. She spent money to buy Yu's piano. Yun thought that she was really smart. However, she had to hide this from Wen. Therefore, Wen didn't know that this piano belonged to Yu's family. She looked at the piano that Yu said wasn't expensive at all. It wasn't as if she didn't know anything. This piano should be the legendary royalty of pianos. It was priceless. There was only one piano made 30 years ago. It was the proudest work of a great pianist and also his last work. She didn't expect to see it here. She didn't even have a fraction of her 100,000 yuan. When saw this piano, she was very happy. She liked it very much and felt that it was very good. Isn't it too wasteful to give such an expensive piano to a beginner like Wen? Yun whispered to Yu. She felt that her idea was a bad idea. If she had known that it was so expensive, she would have bought it herself. Yu was in a very good mood. It's worth it if Wen likes and fancies it. I also used this piano to learn when I was young. Yun looked at the young men carefully carrying the piano to the piano room that she had temporarily tidied up. She suddenly felt that such a simple and crude place wasn't worthy of such a high-end piano. After the young men set up the piano, they left respectfully. Wen's eyes were glued to the black piano. It was simple and elegant, noble and charming. It stood there quietly, aloof from the world and independent. Yun saw that Wen liked it so much, she couldn't even say the words of regret. She thought that she would be able to buy this piano if she earned 8 to 10 years of money, right? Yu walked over. His slender fingers brushed across the black piano cover, then he opened it. He sat on the piano chair and his fingers brushed across the keys. A string of beautiful notes sounded. Then, he started to play. The familiar music sounded. Yun was surprised. She couldn't help but look over. It was a very classic song, for Alice. This song wasn't difficult and the technique was very simple. She had thought that Yu would play a very difficult piece. However, this song sounded very beautiful. Yu's gaze was slightly lowered. His slender fingers danced nimbly on the piano keys. Then, he naturally transitioned to the next song. This was the song that Yu wanted to play for Yun. It was a very difficult song. It was obvious that he was just practicing. Music always made people feel calm. When the last note fell, Yun returned to her senses after a while. Then, she praised, "It's very beautiful music." Although she knew a little how to play the piano, she didn't know how to play difficult songs. Yu's lips curved into a smile. "I'm glad you like it." Wen was also fascinated by the music, but he was not convinced. "Mom, when I learn it, I'll play it for you too." Okay. Mom will wait." Wen's fighting spirit was aroused. He decided to learn seriously and defeat Yu. However, the piano teacher would only come in the afternoon. In the morning, 2 cultured and elegant etiquette teachers came. The 2 teachers gave off a very different aura. They were of a higher level than the etiquette teachers of the original body. Yun didn't know how to describe it. If she really had to differentiate, it would be like the difference between a poor student and an elite student in an etiquette class. Fu Yun knew from her memories that families with a little background placed great importance on nurturing the next generation. These etiquette classes were the most basic requirements. Aristocratic families also had social circles. Different occasions had different etiquette. If you didn't know anything, you would be embarrassing the aristocratic family. Fu Yun hadn't thought of letting Wen learn these things, but Sai Yu had already arranged for someone to do it. Seeing how these etiquette teachers were respectful and polite to Sai Yu, she couldn't help but suspect Sai Yu's identity. Outside, it was rumored that Sai Yu was just an ordinary actor with an ordinary family background. She used to think so too, but now, she suddenly didn't understand this word. If he was really so ordinary, would he have the only expensive piano in the world? Or did he use it to learn when he was young? How could he hire better etiquette teachers than the Fu family? Who exactly was Sai Yu? Chapter 99. Fu Yun thought of something that was even more unreasonable. How could Sai Yu not be at a disadvantage when compared to the male and female leads in the original novel? She had never thought deeply about it in the past. After all, there were many unreasonable things in a novel. Perhaps it was just to set up the persona of a big boss in the entertainment industry. However, if he was just a big boss in the entertainment industry, would he have such great ability? Fu Yun had a lot of doubts in her heart. Ever since she found out that Fang Shui's status in the entertainment industry had declined, her reputation was bad, and her fans had caused many resources to be blocked, Fu Yun would occasionally think about a question. Was the female lead's halo gone? According to the previous plot, anyone who went against the male and female leads would not have a good ending. But now, she had already offended the male and female leads, and she was still fine. Her career was in full swing and she was not affected at all. Sai Yu was the same. From the beginning, he had never suffered a loss to them. Fu Yun recalled the plot in the novel. It was only a few chapters away from the end of the plot. Fang Shui was pregnant, they got married, and it would end with the wedding of the century. She did not know the exact time, but after some calculations, it would probably be this year. Ruoruo. Sai Yu saw that Fu Yun was suddenly in a daze as she was talking, so he could not help but call out to her with concern. Fu Yun came back to her senses. What's wrong? She shook her head. Nothing. Fu Yun really wanted to ask about Sai Yu's background, but she felt that it would be too abrupt, so she did not ask anything in the end. Wen was very resistant to the etiquette teacher. He swore that he did not want to study and wanted to cause trouble. He did not want to be arranged by Sai Yu. Fu Yun did not intervene. She knew that it was for Wen's good. However, on the one hand, she felt that Wen was still too young. It would be too stressful to study so many classes at once. She only wanted Wen to have a relaxed and happy childhood. If he was really unwilling, it would not be too late for him to be more sensible in a year or two. However, these two teachers were very resourceful. Within 2 days, they had piqued Wen's interest and made him take the initiative to learn. The teachers didn't ask Wen to remember. They just spent 2 hours teaching her every day. Under the influence of what they saw and heard, the etiquette habits slowly integrated into her bones unconsciously. Because there were no requirements, he just lectured every day. There were also many vivid examples, just like listening to a story. Occasionally, he would make a demonstration for fun. Wen followed him and imitated him excitedly. It was indeed easy for her to learn. As for the effect, she did not see any results in just a few days, but she did not know if it was Fu Yun's illusion, but she felt that Wen's temperament and demeanor looked a little different. When Fu Yun saw this, she had no more objections. She tried to recall the etiquette teacher of the Fu family from the depths of her memory. Compared to this, she was simply trash. Learning the piano was also a very pleasant process. Wen's brain worked quickly and he learned quickly. At first, he felt that 2 hours of learning a day was too short and wanted to learn more. If it wasn't for Fu Yun's restriction of time, he would have wanted to sit in front of the piano for the entire day. Fu Yun looked at Wen, who was learning enthusiastically every day. He did not look reluctant at all. She thought for a moment. Could this be the legendary fragrance? Soon, It was the day that Wen invited the children over as guests. Fu Yun had dressed up the house very early in the morning and even made many small animal pastries in advance. As it was summer now, Fu Yun made many summer sweets and consulted a nutritionist to prepare a suitable lunch for the children. This nutritionist was introduced by Sai Yu and was very professional. Fu Yun was even more curious about Sai Yu's identity. She began to recall which powerful and influential tycoons in the country had the surname Sai. She felt that the Fu family was already at a high position and knew which low-key aristocratic families there were, even though they did not interact with each other. However, she did not have any impression of them. Could it be that they were overseas? Fu Yun really could not guess, so she suppressed her doubts in her heart. On the day of the banquet, Wen was dressed like a little prince and stood at the door to welcome the guests. Around 9:30 p.m., the children's parents sent their children over one after another. Kang was the first to arrive. The car stopped in front of the door. As soon as the car door opened, Kang jumped out of the car with a cool robot in her hand. When she saw Wen, she rushed over excitedly. Wen. Kang rushed in front of Wen and happily handed over the robot in her hand. "This is my favorite toy. It's for you. Thank you." Wen took it and thanked her happily. "I like it very much." Kang was even happier when she saw that Wen liked it very much. She even went forward to hug him. Kang's parents walked over, and Wen greeted them politely. "Hello, uncle and auntie." Fu Yun also greeted the children's parents. She could not help but take another look at Kang's mother. She was more familiar with Kang's father, who fetched them every day, but it was her first time meeting Kang's mother. She was not the elite woman she had imagined. Instead, Wan was gentle and not aggressive. "Hello, Wen's mother. I've heard a lot about you." "Hello, Kang's mother." The adults greeted each other warmly and politely. Kang had already pulled Wen into the house eagerly. It was his first time at Wen's house, so he was looking forward to it and excited. As Sai Yu had not been accepted yet, he could not welcome the guests as a parent. He could only help as a friend like Tian and Qian Shengnan. And even if he went to help, he could not show his face in front of the children's parents. Who knew how many of the parents knew Sai Yu? If they were his fans, the scene would be too beautiful. Therefore, Sai Yu could only come over after all the parents had left. He was very depressed in his heart, but he had to pretend that he did not care. The children's parents saw that Wen's parents were well prepared, and there were also a few adults who were paying attention to the children at all times. They were very relieved and did not stay for long before leaving. They agreed to come back in the afternoon to pick up the children. They received more than 10 little guests one after another. The house was already very lively, and the children's noisy and happy voices could be heard outside. Wen acted like a little host. He brought the group of children to visit his house and then ate the pastries that his mother had made. Fu Yun had already confirmed with every parent that there was nothing that the children did not eat or were allergic to. She carefully avoided them, so the children could eat to their heart's content. After tasting his mother's cooking, Wen brought them to play games and toys. Fortunately, the children were very obedient to Wen, so it was very easy to bring them around. Fu Yun, Sai Yu, and Tian did not participate, but they kept watching the little guests from the side. They watched to avoid any accidents and dangers, and if there was anything that they needed, they would help to solve in time. At noon, the nutritionist and chef introduced by Sai Yu cooked a sumptuous children's meal together. They took care of every child's taste, and the children ate until their stomachs were round and round. They were very happy. After digesting their food in the playroom for a while, Wen led the children to take an afternoon nap in the big room. Fu Yun bought many comfortable and cute small sleeping bags, and the floor was covered with soft blankets. The children were very curious and happily lay in the sleeping bags to take an afternoon nap. Wen also slept with them. After the children woke up, they went to the entertainment room in the neighborhood to play. When it was time to leave, they were still so happy that they did not want to go home. It was not until 5:30 that all the reluctant children were safely sent to their parents. The liveliness at home seemed to still be there, and Fu Yun's mind seemed to still be echoing with the children's screams and playful sounds. Fu Yun, Wen, and Tian collapsed on the sofa, not wanting to move at all. Fu Yun finally heaved a sigh of relief. Although the children were very worry-free and did not cry or throw tantrums, there were so many children, and she had to be very careful at all times. It was very tiring. If this happened a few more times, it would be too scary. I really admire those kindergarten teachers. The children were obedient and were like little angels, but when they played, they were like Sun Wukong. Tian sighed. It was really tiring to take care of children. The children's energy seemed to be endless. It was really too scary. Fu Yun agreed very much. She felt that she had to thank the teachers properly. They were really too great. Fu Yun now felt that her entire body had been hollowed out, and she did not even want to move a finger. But seeing how happy Wen was, she felt that no matter how tired she was, it was worth it. Wen took the initiative to hug Fu Yun and kissed her twice on the face. "Thank you, Mom. It's been hard on you." Fu Yun's face bloomed with a smile, and she could not help but kiss back twice. She said happily, "You're welcome. Wen is very good." Wen chuckled. However, he felt that it was enough to treat them like this once. The next time he invited the children, 1 or 2 or 3 would be enough. It was too tiring to invite too many children. Yu poured a glass of fruit juice for each of them, and then cleaned up the mess. To be honest, Yu did the most work, especially when it came to physical work. He basically did it all. Fu Yun mainly comforted the children and guided them to pay attention to safety when they were playing. Those decorations had to be removed, so many children were running up and down, sweeping and mopping the floor. There was also a pile of trash that had to be thrown out. Fu Yun and the others lay down for a while, and they cleaned up together. There was strength in numbers, and they quickly cleaned up the house. No matter what, today's banquet ended successfully. After that, many parents asked her about the dishes for lunch. Many children still wanted to eat after eating, and they clamored at home to eat more. After Fu Yun asked the chef, she sent the dishes and recipe over. After this, her relationship with the parents became much closer. Everyone even set up a parents group to exchange their thoughts on raising children. In the end, the nutritionist and chef stayed. Children had to be raised carefully, and the diet had to be adjusted according to their physical condition. For Wen's sake, Fu Yun was easily persuaded to compromise. The nutritionist said that the child's weight had exceeded the standard, and she needed to be careful. Fu Yun looked at Wen's small round body. The little girl's skin was fair and tender, and she looked cute. Her chubby body was even more adorable. She originally thought that this was very good, but the professionals said that she had to control her weight, so she had to control it. As for the chef, Yu said that Fu Yun was already very busy every day, so there was no need to spend so much time on 3 meals. She hired a professional chef to cook sumptuous, nutritious, and delicious food. The nutritionist and chef did not live at home, and they could not afford to. The chef would come over every day, prepare the food in the morning, noon, and night, and then leave. Yu arranged for them to live in a residence near the district, so it was very convenient for them to come over every day. Fu Yun, she felt that her savings were not enough to support such a luxurious life. However, Yu said that these were all long-term employees of the family. Regardless of whether they worked or not, they had to pay a large sum of money every year. It was better to let them use their skills. Fu Yun could not help but ask, "Does your family have an heir to the throne?" Yu found it funny. No. He did have a financial group, but if he wanted the throne, he had many private islands under his name. It was about right to be the owner of an island. Then Yu hinted, "If you think it's okay, I'll bring you to meet my family." When Fu Yun heard this, she decided to forget it. She would pretend that she did not ask. It was better not to talk about such a sensitive topic. Fu Yun turned around and realized that the house was much livelier. There was a piano teacher, an etiquette teacher, and even a chef and nutritionist. These teachers all revolved around Wen. Other than the chef, they could benefit from it. Because of this, she could not refuse firmly. Wen had to study, so she rarely went to the garden. Fu Yun asked Chen Shengnan to stay at home. She could go there herself. Sai Yu saw that Wen was living a fulfilling life every day and did not have time to stick to Fu Yun. He finally had a chance to be alone with Fu Yun. Sai Yu smiled in satisfaction. Yes, children should study more. Why was she sticking to her mother all day like a child who had not been weaned? Then, he turned around to talk to Fu Yun. He suddenly took out an invitation and said in a mysterious tone, "Guess what this is?" Fu Yun looked over curiously. "What is it?" Sai Yu shook it and did not keep her in suspense. He directly explained the mystery. An invitation to the premiere. Fu Yun was pleasantly surprised. Needless to say, this was definitely the premiere of a sci-fi film that Wen had participated in. She took it and opened it. It was set to be a week later. Sai Yu's smile was gentle. "We'll bring Wen along to watch it." Fu Yun nodded repeatedly. This was Wen's first movie. She had to watch it. Thank you. No matter what, she was very grateful to Sai Yu for getting this invitation. You don't have to be so polite. It's what I should do. Fu Yun lowered her head and smiled. Uncle Guo saw that Sai Yu followed Fu Yun around every day. He did not say anything, but there was dissatisfaction between his brows that he wanted to take his beautiful little cabbage. Although he did not let him touch the flowers, he still had other things to do, such as sweeping the floor, mopping the floor, and running errands. Fu Yun felt a little sympathetic, but she did not say anything. At first, she thought that Sai Yu got close to her for Wen and confessed to her for Wen. However, after a long time, she could tell that even if Sai Yu's motives were not pure, he did have some feelings for her. Fu Yun Ruo could not tell where this good impression came from. Although she was already the mother of a child, she was more picky when it came to relationships and marriage. She yearned for a pure one that was not mixed with too many other factors. She still did not know if he liked her because she was the mother of his son. If it was another person, would he also pursue her? She did not want to think too deeply about things that were too complicated. Fu Yun felt that it was okay to raise a child together, but she still had to think carefully about forming a family for the child. Or should she just treat them as a divorced family? Wen was so engrossed in her studies that she could not extricate herself. A few days later, when Yuan Xin came over to talk about serious matters, her eyes were still in a daze. Yuan Xin said, "Have you forgotten that the Xianxia film crew is about to start filming?" Wen. He really had forgotten. However, when Yuan Xin mentioned it, Wen asked happily, "Has filming already started? Am I going to join the crew?" "Yes, you have to go tomorrow afternoon." This time, there were many outdoor scenes and it was far from home. It was definitely not possible to go back and forth every day like last time, so Wen had to stay at the hotel there for a period of time. "I have already booked a suite and specially came over to inform you. I will pick you up at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon." Wen played the role of the male lead when he was young. As a character who did not appear much in the movie, filming for a week was enough. Moreover, because he appeared in the early stages of the movie, he joined the crew relatively early. Fu Yun also forgot about this matter. When she heard Brother Yuan's words, she also started to prepare her luggage. She was going to follow them. After being happy, Fu Yun suddenly thought, "Isn't the premiere 3 days later? Wouldn't that be a coincidence?" Fu Yun did not want to miss the premiere. Premiere? What premiere? When heard this, she immediately asked expectantly, "Is it a sci-fi film?" Fu Yun originally wanted to give Wen a surprise that day. Now that she heard it, she did not hide it and said with a smile, "Yes." Wen jumped up happily and looked at Fu Yun with sparkling eyes. Yuan Xin obviously knew about this too. He said, "The film crew is not far from the premiere. You can just apply for leave then." Fu Yun was a little hesitant. Won't that be bad? She had just started filming and asked for leave. It's okay. Wen doesn't have many scenes. You can just move the time. Yuan Xin did not care. I've already talked to the director. Wen's scenes were at most 10 minutes. There was plenty of time for a week. It was not a big deal to leave after talking to the film crew. Fu Yun did not have any objections. She touched Wen-Wen's head. Mommy and baby will watch baby's first movie together. Wen-Wen's cheeks were red. He smiled so widely that his teeth could not be seen. He replied heavily, okay. Wen-Wen's career was booming and smooth. In the same entertainment industry, Fang Shui had not been having a good time recently. There was a problem with the Xianxia film crew that she was in. The male lead was exposed to have a secret marriage. If that was the case, it would not be so bad. However, he had an affair and fooled around with the second female lead in the film crew. He was caught red-handed by the original wife. Now, the original wife was going to file a lawsuit for divorce. Most of this male star's fans were his girlfriend's fans. He even set up a persona of a pampered fan. Now, this male star was hated by everyone. There were a large number of fans in the comments section. There were even people who stepped on him and released concrete evidence. He even slept with his fans. This time, everyone was even more hateful. Even the film crew was deeply affected and had to stop filming. The director was even more furious. If they did not change the male lead, with so many stains that could not be washed away, the drama would definitely be affected. There might not even be a chance to air it. If they changed the male lead, they would be almost done filming. If they changed the male lead, their previous costs would be gone. It would be equivalent to filming from scratch. How could Fang Shui's expression be good? This was the best resource she had, but in the end, he was so tired because of someone else. The film crew discussed for a few days and finally decided to change the male lead. However, they would not film from scratch. Firstly, there was not enough time. Secondly, they did not have enough funds to support them. The film crew's biggest investors were Orange Entertainment and the Chang family. Recently, the Chang family had been troubled and had no time to care about a small film crew. This film crew was obviously going to be ruined. Why would they invest money in it? Orange Entertainment was not doing well either. It was worth mentioning that the male star who was in trouble was under Orange Entertainment. He was also a male star that the company had focused on nurturing. At first, they wanted to save him so that their investment would not be wasted. However, no matter how they greeted the industry or invested money to remove the trending topic and use other gossip to suppress it, it was useless. Before this incident was over, the company had another incident. The young actresses that they had focused on recently left collectively. There were also female stars who had been famous for a long time who were poached by other companies. The artists of Orange Entertainment had been dissatisfied with the company's unfair resource allocation for a long time. A year ago, all the resources were given to Fang Shui. No matter how dissatisfied they were, they could only smile politely. After all, she had a strong background, so they could only hold back their opinions. This also led to the female artists in the company who wanted to make a name for themselves and had the ability to act could only find their own way. Otherwise, they could only remain silent and unknown. It was only when Fang Shui's reputation fell that they saw the hope of making a name for themselves. In the end, even though the company had already hinted that they would train them, they still had to make way for Fang Shui. Originally, the female lead of the Xianxia film crew had already been decided to be one of the young actresses in the company. She was about to make a name for herself, but because of Fang Shui's words, she had to give up the role. This also disappointed the female artists who had seen hope. They realized that as long as Fang Shui was around, they would never be able to make a name for themselves. Therefore, when other entertainment companies came to poach them, offered generous conditions, and promised that the company would pay for the breach of contract, they did not hesitate and immediately agreed. With all these things piled up, the company's higher-ups were in a terrible fix. They could barely take care of themselves, so how could they care about the crew? The company's higher-ups suddenly realized that almost half of the people in the company, whether they were unknown or slightly famous, had left. A considerable number of them had expired their contracts and did not renew them. When they looked at their resumes, they found that they were all slightly talented, but they did not have the opportunity to make a name for themselves. Once these people left, they did not even have enough talent to nurture. The company suffered a great loss. How could the company's higher-ups not be angry? Even though the Chang family was one of the company's biggest shareholders, they were still held accountable. After all, the other shareholders knew that if the young master of the Chang family had not used the company's resources to support his fiancée, the company would not have faced such a situation. When it came to their own interests, they were extremely clear-headed. In the past, why did they think that if Fang Shui could reach the same heights as Sai Yu, the company would become a giant in the entertainment industry? If they could not suppress these trivial matters, the crew would be greatly affected. Even if they tried to save them, they would not be able to come back. They could only feel the heartache of the loss of investment. Therefore, the crew had been abandoned. The director's way of saving himself was to terminate the contract with the male lead. He did not want to reshoot the film and replaced the male lead with an unknown newcomer. Any slightly famous male star cherished his reputation and did not want to be involved with the crew. Therefore, on the other hand, the crew had been abandoned. If Fang Shui wanted to use the crew to stand in the entertainment industry again, it was impossible. Now that the company's higher-ups were even more dissatisfied with her, she could no longer have better resources. She was really banned. When she realized this, Fang Shui suddenly panicked and did not know what to do. In the past, when the Fu family and the Chang family were around, even if Fang Shui was angry that some resources were rejected, she would not be too affected. Because she knew that she would not be driven into a corner. But now, the Chang family had just suffered a great loss. They had no choice but to give an explanation to the shareholders. Moreover, Fang Shueruo also realized that the elders of the Chang family were criticizing her. Fang Shui thought for a moment and asked the driver to take her back to the Fu family. Chapter 100. When Fang Shui returned home, Fu Zonghong and Fang Wanting were both at home. The sky was about to turn dark. The street lamps and the lights in the house were already on. The bright chandelier made the furnishings in the house look white. Fu Zonghong was sitting on the sofa watching an educational channel. The only sound in the empty living room was the sound of the TV channel. Fang Wanting was in the kitchen cooking dinner with the auntie. "Uncle." Fang Shui walked to the other side of the sofa and sat down. "You're back," Fu Zonghong replied. "Where's Mom?" Fang Shui looked around and heard some movement in the kitchen. "In the kitchen," Fu Zonghong replied. He did not say anything else and continued to focus on the TV. Fang Shui's face was a little bitter. She watched for a while and really did not understand what was so interesting about this childish children's show. However, since Fu Zonghong did not take the initiative to talk to her, she did not say anything. "I'll go help Mom." She then got up and walked to the kitchen. Fang Shui saw Fang Wanting and felt wronged. "Mom." The auntie hurriedly greeted her. "Miss, you're back." Fang Wanting saw that Fang Shui was still unhappy when she came back. She did not say anything and just asked her to help. She chatted with the auntie affectionately. "This soup is a little bland. Old Fu's appetite hasn't been very good recently. Madam really cares about Sir." The auntie smiled. Fang Wanting had a faint smile on her face. "Old Fu doesn't take care of himself, so I have to take care of him from the side. Sir and Madam are really loving." Fang Wanting smiled. "What's there to be loving? We're already an old married couple." 6 dishes and 1 soup were all ready. Fang Wanting instructed Fang Shui to carry out the dishes. She also carried out a plate of colorful stir-fried vegetables. "Old Fu, it's time for dinner." Fu Zonghong responded. He picked up the remote control and pressed the pause button. Then, he got up and walked towards the restaurant. He was dressed in casual clothes and looked much younger. If it weren't for the wrinkles on his forehead, he would have looked like he was in his early 40s. Fu Zonghong looked at the dishes that were obviously prepared by Fang Wanting. His expression softened. "Thank you." Fang Wanting when WN smiled and said, "You should eat more. That's the greatest compliment you can give me." Fang Shui said jealously, "Mom only has eyes for uncle. Even I, as her daughter, have to take a step back." Fang Wanting smiled helplessly and said, "You're already so old, yet you're still jealous like a child." Fu Zonghong laughed. The family of 3 sat down and ate quietly. At first, they didn't talk. It was Fang Wanting who spoke first. "Shui Ruo, why did you come back at this time? Have you finished filming your scenes?" Fang Shueruo looked depressed and lost her appetite even more. She said dejectedly, "No, something happened in the crew, so we can only put it on hold. The male lead of the crew has been changed, and several important supporting actresses have been terminated." Fang Wanting frowned. "Haven't you been filming for a long time? Isn't it a waste of time?" Fu Zonghong said unhappily, "A man who cheats on a girl and has an affair should be banned. How can anyone like such a person? There are so many messy people in the entertainment industry." Fang Shui couldn't help but be surprised. She didn't expect her uncle to know about this. Didn't he usually not pay attention to the entertainment industry? Fang Wanting sighed. Shui Ruo was also implicated. She worked so hard for so many months and even fell sick from exhaustion. In the end, all her efforts went down the drain. In business, there are losses and profits. High returns mean high risks. If you don't investigate thoroughly before investing, you can only bear the consequences if something happens. Fang Wanting looked at Fu Zonghong and said in agreement, "Now that things have come to this, don't think too much. There is more than one crew in your industry." Fang Shui was even more upset. She looked at Fu Zonghong and her eyes suddenly turned red. "I've been banned. I have no more resources." Fang Wanping was surprised and asked repeatedly, "What's going on?" Fang Shui's voice choked with grief. "Ever since my sister, on the internet, my life hasn't been easy. She has many friends in the entertainment industry, so my resources have been cut off. I don't care about that, because Brother Chang can still give me some resources. But now something has happened." Fang Shui lowered her head and tears dripped down. Fang Wanting's heart ached when she heard this, but she looked at Fu Zonghong hesitantly and finally sighed. She has always been angry. Forget it, she can take a break. Fang Wanting suddenly thought of something and said, "Why don't you go to your Uncle Fu's company and help him out? You can learn how to manage a company. You have been engaged with Brother Chang for so long, it's time to consider marriage. Learn some management skills and share some of Brother Chang's burdens." Fang Wanting looked at Fu Zonghong and asked for his opinion. "Brother Fu, what do you think?" Fu Zonghong frowned and said, "You were so insistent on joining the entertainment industry. Now you run away when you encounter problems. Can you solve the problem?" He didn't know what was so good about the entertainment industry. One after another, they all went to the entertainment industry to join the live broadcast industry. Fang Shui lowered her head and looked gloomy. Fang Wanting saw that Fu Zonghong was angry and quickly comforted him. "Brother Fu, don't be angry. She is depressed because of some setbacks. Isn't she taking things too hard?" Fu Zonghong put down his chopsticks, stood up and was about to leave the dining room. Fang Wanting quickly stood up and chased after him. "Brother Fu, you're not eating anymore?" "I'm not eating anymore." Fu Zonghong left immediately. "Brother Fu." Fang Wanting called after him, but he didn't stop. For a moment, the dining room was eerily silent. Fang Shui didn't expect Uncle Fu to leave just like that. It was the first time she saw Uncle Fu disrespecting her mother. She couldn't react in time. Not long after, Fu Zonghong came downstairs. He had changed into a suit and said, "My old friend invited me out for a drink. Don't wait for me tonight." Fang Wanting said considerately, "Be careful. Don't drink too much." "Okay," Fu Zonghong replied casually, then turned and left. Fang Wanting watched as Fu Zonghong's back disappeared at the door. She stood for a while, then sat down on the chair and her face suddenly turned cold. Fang Shui hadn't seen her mother's expression other than a smile for a long time. She was as cold as a cicada in winter. She carefully said, "Mom?" Fang Wanping glanced at her indifferently. "Fang Shueruo, what did I teach you?" Fang Shueruo had played a good hand, but now it was ruined. Fang Wanping's painstaking efforts over the years had gone down the drain. How could she have such a stupid daughter? It was also because she didn't teach her well. Fang Shui used to be able to seduce a man using such a simple method. She naively thought that she could control everything. Before she really won, she couldn't be careless. Fang Shui was silent for a moment, then she said unwillingly, "Is blood relations that important?" Fang Wanting didn't say anything. She used to think that as long as one wanted to, even if they were blood relatives, they could turn against each other and never see each other again. But now, she realized that blood relations weren't that easy to sever. Shui Ruo. Fang Wanting's expression quickly softened. She gestured for Fang Shui to come over. Fang Shui moved her seat and sat next to Fang Wanting. Shui Ruo, you've been dating Yu for so long. It's time for you to accept him, Fang Wanting said gently. Yu is infatuated with you. You have to cherish him. Fang Shui bit her lower lip. Her eyes flashed with a trace of unwillingness. Mom, if you continue to delay him, Mom won't be on your side. Fang Wanting gently patted Fang Shui's hand. Marriage is a woman's second reincarnation. You're very lucky to be able to marry a man who only has you in his heart. Fang Shui leaned her head gently on Fang Wanting's shoulder and said coquettishly, you keep speaking up for him. Am I still your daughter? Silly child. Fang Wanting rebuked. It's because you're my daughter that I'm saying this. Fang Shui's eyes narrowed. She remained silent and didn't say anything else. Fu Zonghong got into the car and left. The driver asked respectfully, Sir, where are you going? Fu Zonghong was silent for a moment before he gave him an address. It was his property in another place, some distance away from here. Fu Zonghong didn't have any old friends looking for him. He just suddenly didn't want to stay at home. He realized that he had never really seen the two women in his family clearly. Many years ago, he didn't know when, but he only knew one thing. The mother and daughter had always been wronged and bullied by Yun Ruo. Yun Ruo had a bad temper. She was arrogant and vicious. She didn't have the demeanor of a noble lady at all. She was neurotic all day long. Later on, his temper also became irritable. He lost patience with his only daughter. Every time they met, they would quarrel endlessly. It was only recently that he learned about Fu Yun from other sources. It was as if he had just gotten to know her. It completely overturned his understanding of her. He didn't know that Fu Yun would be so popular if she had such a good temper. A few days ago, he secretly found Fu Yun's live broadcast room. The first entertainment app was installed on his phone. Since the first day he watched the live broadcast, he secretly followed every live broadcast. He even learned how to send gifts. Recently, Wen also opened a social media account and caused a stir on the internet. He even specially registered an account to follow and searched for it every day. Compared to his disapproval of Fang Shui and Fu Yun's involvement in the entertainment industry and live broadcast industry, Fu Zonghong had a different attitude in front of Wen. He was very proud to see that his grandson was so popular. He watched countless videos and pictures of him every day. Because he realized that he didn't pay enough attention to Fu Yun in the past and understood some of the reasons for her resentment, he felt guilty and didn't dare to appear in front of them righteously. Therefore, no matter how much Fu Zonghong wanted to see Wen and Fu Yun, he didn't take the initiative to appear. He only occasionally drove the car to the flower garden or outside the neighborhood where they lived. Sometimes, he could see them. Fu Zonghong went to the new house. His personal assistant was already there and had cleaned the house. Recently, his personal assistant had a task to report to Fu Zonghong about the whereabouts of Fu Yun and her son every day. After knowing that Wen had started to take many courses recently, Fu Zonghong was very proud. What a good child. He had already found a suitable teacher. Even if she didn't come back to live with the Fu family, she wouldn't reject finding a teacher for her child, right? Now that he heard that his child had found a teacher who was better than him, he was proud but also a little disappointed. He felt that he was useless. However, he heard that these teachers were hired by the celebrity called Sai Yu. Fu Zonghong was a little dissatisfied. Why was he so concerned? He must be up to no good. He had to watch out for him. His personal assistant also said, in 2 days' time, it will be the premiere of the movie that little young master is involved in. Fu Zonghong's eyebrows relaxed. Get an invitation. It was Sun Sun's first movie. He had to see it with his own eyes. On the other hand, Fu Yun Ruo and Wen carried their luggage to report to the set. This time, even Sai Yu went with them. Fu Yun Ruo was curious. Aren't you not involved? Sai Yu said, I'm the producer and the biggest investor. There was nothing wrong with going to the set to inspect. When Ruo was dissatisfied. Why are you in the same car as us? When they were face to face, no matter where they looked, they could see each other. How annoying. Sayu raised his eyebrows. We have the same manager. There was nothing wrong with going to the same set in the same car. Wen snorted loudly. Fu-yun Ruo looked at Wen and felt helpless. She felt that Wen had already accepted the fact that Sayu was her father. Otherwise, why would she be so willful? Wen was very sensible in front of others and would never throw a tantrum. There was a saying that said, those who were favored had nothing to fear. In the past, when she did not know the truth, no matter how well she got along with Sayu, she rarely threw a tantrum. Perhaps Sayu also knew that she was special, so she tolerated Wen's awkwardness and even childishly fought with her. If Fu-yun could not get involved, she would not get involved. When the car arrived at the hotel booked by the set, they entered the hotel quietly. Yuan Shin booked a suite for them. There was a room inside and another outside. She and Wen could have a room each. The suite was very luxurious. Fu-yun Ruo felt that the production team was really giving them face by giving them such good treatment. Wen and Fu-yun Ruo stayed in a luxurious hotel together. They felt that it was a novel experience and were a little excited. They could not help but jump on the bed. When Fu-yun Ruo saw this, she felt embarrassed. Fu-yun Ruo felt that children who pretended to be mature were very cute, but she liked Wen's childish behavior even more. Hence, she was very happy. Not long after, the hotel delivered dinner. There was a children's meal and 3 set meals. Sayu and Yuan Shin also came. Sayu's room was opposite. It was also a suite and Yuan Shin was also staying together. This time, when Ruo saw that Yuan Shin was there and did not say anything. Yuan Shin had already said what needed to be said in the car. During dinner, he did not say anything and only reminded them to rest early. After the meal boxes were put away, Sayu Ruo and Yuan Shin also said goodbye and left. Sayu looked at Fu-yun Ruo with a gentle gaze. Call me if you need anything. I'll be opposite. Wen was extremely unhappy. He stood in front of Fu-yun Ruo and wanted to block Sayu's view, but his height was completely negligible. Fu-yun Ruo nodded. Good night. Good night. After the two of them left, Wen's little expression was still very unhappy. Mom, you were talking to Uncle Yu again. Fu-yun Ruo tapped his little nose. All right, let's hurry up and take a shower. We'll sleep later. They still had to wake up early the next day and had to rest well. When Ruo snorted. Fu-yun Ruo suddenly said in surprise, we have a little piggy monster in our house. When Ruo's face was blank. What monster? Because he always snorts. If that's not a piggy, then what is? Fu-yun Ruo said seriously. When Ruo reacted. Mom, you're making fun of me. She actually said that he was a piggy. Fu-yun Ruo saw when Ruo's angry face and quickly surrendered. Mom was wrong. Fart. Fu-yun Ruo could not help but laugh. When Ruo said. I don't want to talk to you anymore. When Ruo was so angry that he became a blowfish. He did not snort anymore. Fu-yun Ruo hurriedly went to coax the child. The next day, when Ruo and Fu-yun Ruo were affectionate again. He completely forgot that he had said that he would ignore Fu-yun Ruo last night. The production team had already started filming for a few days. When they arrived, the production team was already on track. When Ruo and the others arrived, the director and assistant director of the production team specially came to welcome them. Yuan Shin was in charge of external communication. Fu-yun Ruo only needed to smile. After the greetings, when Ruo went to try on his makeup. Although when Ruo was only a small male lead who did not have many scenes, he still had a temporary dressing room. The little guy wore 2 custom-made sect robes. Compared to the immortal aura of an adult, the child version was very cute, like a white bun. The child's skin was good and did not need much makeup. He wore a small wig and looked like a little fairy. The photographer took a set photo of him. Fu Yunruo could not hold back and discussed with the photographer to send the photo to her to keep as a memento. Other than looking like a little fairy, he also dressed like a little beggar. His life before he entered the immortal sect was also full of ink. After taking 2 sets of set photos, the morning basically passed just like that. Wenruo only officially started filming in the afternoon. Fu Yunruo watched from the side without blinking. Ruo did not know where he came from and sat beside Fu Yunruo. This was the first time this new production team saw Ruo take the initiative to sit beside a member of the opposite sex. They were inevitably surprised and could not help but sneak a few more glances. Ruo was used to being noticed and did not care, but Fu Yunruo did not notice at all. Ruo smiled and said proudly, Wenruo is like me. In terms of acting, he was full of talent. Fu Yunruo was also very proud, but she was also worried. Will it help him grow through excessive enthusiasm? It won't, Ruo said with certainty. Now that they let Wenruo film, it was very easy and the time was very short. It was similar to playing around. The production team did not dare to pressure Wen, and they did not dare to do so either. Wenruo was very popular in the production team. Whether it was because they wanted to curry favor with Wen's connections or because Wen was very likable, the entire production team expressed that they liked Wen very much. He was like a fish in water in the production team, so his leave application was very smooth. The production team did not have any objections at all. Fu Yunruo attached great importance to Wen's first movie premiere. She specially wore an ice blue long dress and specially dressed up. She even tied her long black hair into big wavy curls. Fu Yunruo rarely put on makeup, so her exquisite dressing stunned everyone present when she appeared. Ruo had seen many different kinds of beauties, but only Fu Yunruo's beauty moved his heart. He did not hide the admiration in his eyes. Very beautiful. Wenruo was like a happy little bee, circling Fu Yunruo a few times. She looked up at her and praised happily, "Mommy is so beautiful." Fu Yunruo beamed. Wenruo is very handsome too. Wenruo wore a custom-made suit and looked cute and cool. When Fu Yunruo looked up at Yu, her gaze paused and she returned the favor. "You're very handsome too." Ruo was in a good mood. "Thank you for your compliment." The group of people headed to the venue of the premiere. There were already many reporters waiting outside. They were full of anticipation for this movie. Regardless of whether it was good or bad, they just wanted to get first-hand information. They couldn't wait to interview her. Invitees entered the venue one after another. The reporters were able to name every guest that was invited. Isn't that the Golden Mouth film critic? Even Mr. Jiang is here. He's famous for his sharp tongue. With Yu around, she's the only one that Mr. Jiang has publicly expressed his admiration for. Fu Yun and the others did not enter through the main entrance. Instead, they were led in through a small, low-key door by the staff. There were quite a lot of people at the premiere. Many of them had already arrived, but everyone clearly remembered that they were here for business and sat down properly. Yu led Fu Yunruo and Wen went to the front row. "Our seats are here." This was the best seat in the entire competition. The moment Fu Yun went over, she could feel the gazes from all directions. Fortunately, Fu Yun was used to being stared at, so she did not lose her composure. There were 3 seats. Wen quickly recognized the middle seat and sat down. Yu didn't say anything. He sat on Wen's left while Fu Yun sat on his right. They waited quietly for the opening ceremony. A staff member walked over and whispered a few words in Yu's ear. Yu nodded and the staff member left. Fu Yunruo turned her head and looked over. "What's wrong?" Yu smiled. "Nothing." Then he asked, "Are you nervous?" Fu Yunruo answered honestly, "A little." Yu chuckled. "I'm a little nervous too." Fu Yunruo was surprised. "Was that for real?" "It's true. I wasn't even this nervous during my first movie premiere." He was the male lead in his first movie and shot to fame. Since he was young, he had never experienced what it meant to be nervous. However, This pair of mother and son made him experience many unfamiliar emotions. When Ruo raised her head and looked left and right, he imagined sitting in the middle to separate the two of them, but it was completely useless. His short stature couldn't separate them at all. He suspected that the two of them had neglected him. When Ruo was secretly sulking. But soon, the premiere of the movie began. The director and the production team representative went up to say a few words. Without much nonsense, they quickly got to the point and started to play the movie. The lights dimmed and the big screen in front of them lit up. Ruo unconsciously sat up straight and stared intently at the big screen, afraid that she would miss anything. The opening of the movie was a magnificent scene that captured everyone's attention and attracted the audience's attention. The special effects of the movie were produced by a foreign team that the production team spent a lot of money on, and the effect was very obvious. To be honest, many of the scenes in the movie were filmed by Ruo with her own eyes, but the effect was completely different from the live scene. Actually, she didn't feel much when she was watching it live because there were no special effects. Instead, it was quite funny to see the thrilling expressions and actions in the dry background. But now, with the special effects and the tight plot acting, the audience was able to follow the ups and downs of the emotions in the movie. Until the end of the movie, she was still in a daze for a long time. She didn't know who was the first to clap, but it was exceptionally clear in the pin-drop silence. Then, it was sparse and loud applause that didn't stop for a long time. Ruo kept clapping her hands hard. She was so proud that her eyes were filled with tears. When, you're amazing. Mom is proud of you. When Ruo's small chest straightened. She wanted to laugh happily, but she felt that she should be reserved. She pursed her lips hard, but she couldn't stop the corners of her lips from rising. If Ruo knew, this movie would definitely be popular. Even without filters, this was a good movie that was worth watching twice and thrice. Chapter 101. After the premiere ended, it didn't take long for the crowd to disperse. Seeing people coming out, the reporters who had been waiting outside for a long time swarmed forward like sharks that had smelled blood. They surrounded the film critics and put their microphones to their lips. Mr. Jiang, what are your thoughts after watching the movie? Is this sci-fi movie a disappointment? Or is it an unexpected surprise? Will this movie be the dark horse of the summer? Do you think that this sci-fi movie will have a bright future? I won't say anything else. I just want to say that I'm looking forward to the release of this movie. I'm going to take my family to the cinema to watch it again. Mr. Jiang's mind was still replaying the plot of the movie. He couldn't wait to go back and pick up his pen to express his agitated feelings. He didn't think highly of domestic sci-fi movies. Even with a big name like Tsai Yu joining the cast, he didn't have much hope. After all, sci-fi movies had always been the weak point of the domestic film industry. He originally thought that this would be the first movie that Tsai Yu had flopped in so many years. Even if he thought highly of Tsai Yu, he still decided to write his thoughts truthfully. In the end, it turned out that he was too narrow-minded. The history of sci-fi movies was about to be rewritten, and he was going to witness it with his own eyes. Ruo and the others didn't see the lively scene outside with their own eyes. After her excitement, she decided to celebrate with Wen. The mother and son were chatting affectionately when they suddenly saw a familiar figure in the crowd. They were surprised. Tsai Yu obviously already knew about it. He said to Ruo, Chairman Fu is also here to watch the premiere. Someone had already reported this to him before the premiere, but in order not to affect Ruo and her son's mood, he didn't tell them. Fu Zonghong noticed their situation and obviously knew that they had discovered him. Hence, he walked over with a straight face. Ruo didn't want her private matters to be seen in public. In the end, under Tsai Yu's arrangement, the group of people went to a quiet lounge. Why are you here? Ruo looked indifferent when she saw Fu Zonghong and his assistant. Her excitement and joy were diluted. Fu Zonghong snorted coldly, Do I have to report to you where I go? Ruo didn't want to quarrel with him, so she frowned and didn't say anything. Fu Zonghong looked at Wen's tea, and he tried his best to smile. Wen looked up at Fu Zonghong and grabbed Fu Yunruo's hand. She hesitated and thanked him. Then, she pretended to be shy and hid behind Fu Yunruo. To Wen, Fu Zonghong was a stranger who was related by blood. His attitude towards him was completely based on Fu Yunruo's position. He knew that Fu Yunruo had a grudge against Fu Zonghong and the two of them were like fire and water. But this was an old man, so no matter what, she still had to be polite. Fu Yunruo saw Fu Zonghong's humble look. Her gaze swept past his temples, and she suddenly noticed that there was a lot of white hair on his temples. Her heart suddenly felt sour. Fu Yunruo looked at the relationship between the two of them from an outsider's point of view, but the emotions of this body could still affect her. Fu Zonghong noticed the tall man standing beside Fu Yunruo, and his gaze suddenly became very picky. He had investigated Sai Yu's background before, and it wasn't as simple as people thought. Even with his connections, he still couldn't find out anything about this fellow. This meant that this fellow had hidden himself well. Fu Zonghong directly said to Sai Yu, "I want to talk to you." Sai Yu smiled, but before she could say anything, Fu Yunruo frowned and said coldly, "What does my friend have to do with you? What do you want to do?" Fu Zonghong said harshly, "You don't even know the background of your so-called friend, yet you let him stay by your side. If you get cheated or bullied, you deserve it. You don't have to worry about that. These friends of mine are all good people. Furthermore, what right do you have to control me? I'm your father." Fu Zonghong said angrily. He didn't have the right to control her. Fu Yunruo was about to reply, but Sai Yu stepped forward and protected Fu Yunruo behind him. He said politely, "Chairman Fu, I personally think that since you didn't care about Ruo 5 years ago, you don't have the right to control her. What do you think?" Sai Yu couldn't understand Fu Yunruo's biological father. Although he had helped to erase the traces back then, with Chairman Fu's ability, if he wanted to investigate, he would definitely be able to find some clues. But after so many years, Chairman Fu had never asked him about it. Even Fang Shueruo could use Fu Yunruo's name to pester him. But Fu Yunruo's biological father didn't care about his daughter's disappearance, as if he didn't have a daughter. From Fu Yunruo's point of view, it was quite chilling. It was no wonder that Fu Yunruo's attitude towards Fu Zonghong was so cold. Since he didn't think of looking for his daughter for so many years, then what right did he have to control Fu Yunruo's matters? Didn't he feel that it was very hypocritical? With that thought in mind, Sai Yu looked at Chairman Fu with an unfriendly gaze. Fu Zonghong's face turned pale and he reprimanded, "This is our Fu family's matter. What right does an outsider like you have to interfere?" Fu Yunruo said, "Mr. Yu is right. Since you didn't care about your daughter for so many years and caused her to be wronged and hurt again and again, you have no right to control my matters." Although Fu Yunruo was scared by the plot in her mind and hid when she first came here, she knew that Fu Zonghong was very cold to the original body. If she didn't leave, she would have been chased away. She was right to leave. Fu Zonghong was angry and embarrassed. He didn't care about her at that time because the Chang family's boy and Shueruo said that she was so vicious that she wanted to drug Shueruo to harm her. He was so angry that he thought that she hid because she was afraid that he would hold her accountable. Under such circumstances, it was good enough that he didn't sever ties with her. How could she expect him to look for her? But now, he realized that things might not be as he thought. Yunruo might also be a victim. Since you were wronged, you didn't come to me to clarify things. Instead, you hid yourself. You still have the nerve to blame others. If that wasn't the case, would he think that she ran away to avoid punishment? At first, he was angry that her methods were so despicable. She didn't have the demeanor of a young lady from an aristocratic family at all. Later, he didn't see her for a long time. He was worried, but he was always easily provoked by the people around him. He felt that having this daughter was really embarrassing him. Later, no one mentioned her for a long time, and even he almost forgot about this daughter. Now that he woke up, he naturally knew that it was his good stepwife who understood his temper. She always sowed discord without batting an eyelid, and then slowly faded Fu Yunruo's position in his heart. He found that he didn't see through people clearly, And he was also angry that he was deceived. But after all, she had been with him for so many years. Other than using some tricks on Fu Yunruo, she was also wholeheartedly devoted to him. It was very difficult for stepdaughters and stepmothers to get along well. He had been cold to her during this period of time, making her realize her mistake. Did she want them to divorce? They were already so old. He had already put down his pride and took the initiative to ask for peace. What else did she want him to do? Fu Yunruo didn't know what Fu Zonghong was thinking. When she heard him blaming her for not telling him that she was wronged, she felt that it was very ironic. Why didn't I come to you? Shouldn't you reflect on yourself? Since young, how many times have I wanted to seek justice from you because I was wronged? But you only know how to reprimand me and think that I'm being unreasonable. Why do you think that I'll trust you like this? When your daughter was at her wit's end, she didn't come to you, her only relative, for help. Instead, she disappeared completely. Fu Yunruo looked at him and said word by word, because my father is no longer my father. He's someone else's father. So, he wasn't her safe haven at all. In fact, he was one of the sources of her uneasiness. Fu Yunruo didn't feel good in her heart. The resentment in the bottom of her heart, and the instinctive closeness to the bloodline, all kinds of feelings were mixed. In general, whether it was the original body or her, they were mostly resentful towards Fu Zonghong. Wasn't the original body's personality becoming extreme caused by these people working together? The only thing that the original body did to hurt others was when Chang Zhuyu insisted on breaking off the marriage with Fang Shuiruo. She lost her rationality and in the end, her plastic friend hinted to her to drug Fang Shuiruo to take an ugly photo of her. She was obsessed with it, but she didn't dare to drug Fang Shuiruo. In the end, she drugged Fang Shuiruo and only wanted to take an ugly photo. In the end, the only time she did something wrong, not only did she not succeed, but she also suffered a backlash. She became the one who took the drug. The drug wasn't even as effective as the original body's drug. She was the first one who didn't believe that there wasn't a twist in the story. But later on, it became her. She didn't want to face the chaos of that day, so she subconsciously forgot about it and didn't want to recall it. Now that she knew that the person was Sai Yu, she didn't feel so disgusted about that night. She didn't try to avoid it anymore, so she tried hard to recall the details of that day. She said these words to fight for justice for the original body. It was fine to say that she was biased, but she felt that the original body was forced step by step to become like this. She felt sorry for the girl who hadn't been treated well by the world since she was 5 years old. When the family of 3 was happy and harmonious, no one thought about how the original body had to deal with all this every day. She was like an outsider who didn't fit in. That was clearly her home. Fu Zonghong was like a punctured balloon. His whole body became dispirited. His back suddenly bent down, and he opened his mouth but didn't say anything. They had been together for 20 years. Even if they raised a dog, they would have a deep relationship, let alone a daughter who had been sensible and considerate since she was young. Even if she wasn't his biological daughter, after so many years of being together, he had already treated her as his biological daughter. Compared to his biological daughter who only knew how to make him angry, naturally, the filial and gentle Fang Shuiruo was more pleasing to him. So he had always hoped that these 2 sisters could get along peacefully and love each other. Reality had proven that all of this was just his wishful thinking. Fu Yun felt a soft and warm feeling in her palm. She lowered her head and saw Wen Wen's concerned eyes. Her gaze instantly softened. No matter if it was the original body or her, they already had the most intimate person in this world that they couldn't let go of. They already had the purest kinship. They already had someone who loved them. They didn't need to ask for Fu Zonghong's kinship anymore. Choosing to keep this child back then was the right thing to do. When the personal assistant saw that the boss was so upset that he couldn't speak, he couldn't help but explain to Fu Yunruo, eldest miss, no matter how unfair Chairman Fu was to you in the past, no matter how badly he treated you, he had never thought of giving the Fu Corporation to anyone else. Before Fu Zonghong remarried, he had made a will and notarized the assets. All of the assets of the Fu Corporation would be inherited by Fu Yunruo. In the end, Not much would be given to the second wife. It was only enough to ensure that she would have no worries in her old age. Of course, Miss Shueruo would also receive a portion. But compared to what eldest Miss would receive, it was just a fraction. When Fu Yunruo heard this, she laughed sarcastically and said, "So? Should I be grateful? I'm sorry." The personal assistant adjusted his glasses and said, "I said too much. Forget it." Fu Zonghong looked a little tired. When he looked at Fu Yunruo, he was no longer aggressive. "No matter what, your mother's hard work is part of the Fu Corporation. If you don't want it, I'll give it to Wen. He worked hard to live for another 10 or 20 years. When grew up, he could give the Fu Corporation to him directly. Wen was a good child. She would definitely take good care of his mother in the future." When heard this, she raised her head and said crisply, "I don't want it." Although the Fu Corporation's huge assets tempted him, he cared more about his mother's feelings. He didn't want to accept other people's kindness for nothing. Moreover, he had already accumulated capital in advance. In another 10 or 20 years, even if he couldn't create another Fu Corporation, he would have the ability to compete with the Chang family and the Fang family. He wouldn't suffer a crushing defeat like in his previous life. Moreover, the Fang family might not even be around in the future. He already knew that the Fu Corporation was the predecessor of the Fang family in his previous life. As long as he stopped the Fang family and their daughter from getting the Fu Corporation, Wen's eyes darted around. "You!" Fu Zonghong instinctively wanted to get angry, but when he saw that Wen looked like Fu Yunruo, he couldn't bring himself to be angry. "Forget it." Fu Zonghong left with his personal assistant. Wen grabbed Fu Yunruo's hand and shook it a few times. She patted her chest and said proudly, "Mother, don't worry. When I grow up, I'll create a company more powerful than the Fu Corporation. I'll let you live a carefree life." When Fu Yunruo heard Wen's comforting words, she instantly felt warm in her heart. She smiled and said, "Then I'll wait to enjoy life." Wen nodded her head seriously. He started to think that when he was older in a few years, his mother would not be so strict with him. Then, it would be easier for him to do things. Then, he would seize the opportunity and set up a company early. Then, he would work hard to film and dominate Saiyu's position. Then, he would accumulate capital and invest in films and television dramas that were destined to be popular and companies with potential. Ahem. Saiyu covered his mouth and coughed heavily. He looked at Wen with an unfriendly gaze. He would take care of his own wife. This rascal was dreaming. Moreover, his family assets were worth a few times more than the Fu Corporation. Why would he need to work so hard to start a company? Since this rascal was so ambitious, Saiyu would remember it. Fu Yunruo looked at Saiyu apologetically. "I've made a fool of myself in front of you." Saiyu didn't mind and only promised, "You have me in the future." If it weren't for the fact that he was Fu Yunruo's father, Saiyu would have taken action. However, because of this relationship, his hands were tied and he didn't make a move in the end. Although this episode affected Fu Yunruo and the others' moods, in the end, Fu Yunruo was still very happy to celebrate with Wen. The internet was also very lively at this moment. The netizens couldn't wait to hear the reviews of the film critics. Although there were already people who had participated in the premiere online, they were more interested in the reviews of the professionals. Saiyu's fans were even more excited. There wasn't much that they could do for the main characters. Only when Saiyu's drama or adulterous advertisements were about to be released would the fans become active online. The more low-key they usually were, the more active they were at this moment. Basically, every social media platform was dominated by the fans. However, even so, the passers-by had a good impression of Saiyu's fans. They knew their limits and didn't make the passers-by feel disgusted. They had a very good impression of this handsome and talented actor. The movies that he acted in represented the quality of the movies. Even if the passers-by didn't chase after celebrities, they would still subconsciously choose the movies that he acted in. This was the scary part about Saiyu. He was very popular with the passers-by. From the elderly to the children, he had a very good reputation. Even if some people didn't have high hopes for sci-fi movies, after knowing that Tsai Yu was the main lead, they still had high expectations. As expected, the reviews after the premiere online were excellent. Although the plot wasn't revealed, even the most sharp-tongued film critics gave a positive review. Everyone expressed that their wallets couldn't wait any longer. Fu-Yun Ruo saw the reviews online and was really glowing. Wen was also singled out by the film critics for praise. Although they didn't directly mention her name, they were very specific and highly praised for Wen's role. She was extremely proud and couldn't help but take screenshots of these long reviews to save. It was rare for her to sleep late tonight. She had been wandering around the internet and taking screenshots of all the praises for Wen to save as a memento. Fu-Yun's excited mood only calmed down a little after midnight. She prepared to sleep, but she didn't feel sleepy. She thought of Fu Zonghong and the special assistant and other words spinning in her mind. Fu-Yun Ruo suddenly suspected the truth of the plot in the original book. In the original book, Fang Shui Ruo was the main character. From her point of view, she was a beautiful, kind, gentle, and pitiful girl. However, Fu-Yun Ruo personally experienced that she wasn't that pure and kind. She thought of a possibility. Could it be that the original bodies falling into the water wasn't an accident? As for why they were killed, perhaps it was because of this will. As long as she existed, they wouldn't be able to legitimately take over the Fu Corporation. Previously, she had heard Fu Zonghong say that the Fu family belonged to her, but she didn't take it to heart. But now, she suddenly thought of this. But no matter what the truth was, she would never be able to find out the truth. She was still here, and those things were just her guesses that would eventually be buried in the dust of history. Fu-Yun Ruo frowned. She didn't want the Fu Corporation. She felt disgusted, and it wasn't hers either. Moreover, Fu Zonghong had admitted that the original body's mother had put in a lot of effort into the Fu Corporation. Because of this, she didn't want to destroy the Fu Corporation. Moreover, she didn't have the ability to do so. However, if she wanted her to give the Fu Corporation to the mother and daughter pair, not to mention the original body, she wouldn't agree either. She thought of the second book, where the mother and daughter pair successfully turned the Fu Corporation into the Fang Corporation. They even used this capital to bully her son and forced him into a corner. Fu-Yun Ruo felt suffocated when she thought of her son's future. This time, no matter what, she wouldn't let the Fu Corporation fall into the hands of the mother and daughter pair. She didn't even want to give them a single cent. If she accepted the Fu Corporation, she wouldn't be able to forgive herself. If she gave it to Wen directly, she knew that she had a son. As long as she didn't accept the Fu Corporation and forgive Father Fu, Wen would never accept it. Fu-Yun Ruo thought for a while and came up with a perfect idea. She would donate the Fu Corporation to the country. The higher-ups should be able to get a guarantee from this sincerity, right? As long as Wen didn't do anything illegal in the future, the higher-ups would protect him if he was bullied in the future. However, this was just a thought that flashed through her mind. Fu-Yun Ruo kept it to herself and didn't tell anyone. On the other hand, Fang Shui Ruo took the initiative to look for Chang Zhuyu at the Chang family's company. The Chang family had been plagued by misfortune recently. They had just suffered a huge blow and had yet to recover from it when something happened to Orange Entertainment. The Chang family was a major shareholder and this affected the Chang family too. Recently, one of their subsidiaries was caught committing tax evasion and was being thoroughly investigated. The Chang family had never encountered so many problems before. Especially in recent years, the Chang family's business had been going smoothly and they had even surpassed the aristocratic families in Qiping. They were in high spirits. However, there had been one incident after another recently. Chang Zhuyu and some of the elders guessed that someone might have done something to the Chang family. However, they couldn't find out who the culprit was. Left with no choice, Chang Zhuyu could only personally oversee the company to calm the employees down. A beautiful female secretary in a professional dress walked in with a cup of coffee. She placed the steaming hot coffee in front of Chang Zhuyu and said coquettishly, "Mr. Chang, this is the coffee I brewed. You must be tired after a long day." Chang Zhuyu didn't even raise his head. He said calmly, "Leave it there first." The female secretary leaned against the desk and leaned over slightly. She said coquettishly, "Mr. Chang, you should rest for a while. If you tire yourself out, Miss Fang will be worried." When she mentioned Fang Shueruo, Chang Zhuyu finally reacted. He put down his pen and stretched his body as he leaned back. The female secretary stood beside the chair and massaged his shoulders. Her alluring body was slightly pressed against him. "That's more like it." When Fang Shueruo walked in, she saw this scene. She smiled faintly. "Shuer." Chang Zhuyu was pleasantly surprised to see Fang Shueruo. He stood up abruptly. "Why are you here? Seems like I came at the wrong time," Fang Shueruo said and turned to leave. "Shuer." Chang Zhuyu hurried over and hugged her. "You have no idea how happy I am to see you here." He was indeed very happy. He was always the one who took the initiative to look for Shuer. She rarely took the initiative to look for him. Every time Fang Shueruo appeared, he was pleasantly surprised. "Miss Fang, please don't misunderstand. There's nothing between Mr. Chang and me." Just as Chang Zhuyu was about to tell Fang Shueruo his heartfelt feelings, a delicate voice suddenly interrupted. Chang Zhuyu frowned and looked over. He reprimanded, "Why are you still here? Get out." The female secretary stomped her feet coquettishly. Mr. Chang Tilda, however, she didn't dare to say anything in the face of Chang Zhuyu's cold gaze. In the end, she twisted her body and walked out. Before she left, the female secretary glanced at Fang Shueruo smugly. Fang Shueruo was just the stepdaughter of the Fu family. How could she be good enough for Mr. Chang? She would definitely seduce Mr. Chang. Chang Zhuyu didn't care what the beautiful female secretary was thinking. He hurriedly brought Fang Shueruo in, closed the door, and greeted her politely. Fang Shueruo was very uncomfortable. Anyone who saw their things being coveted would be unhappy. "Who is she?" Fang Shueruo's expression was calm. She didn't question him, but Chang Zhuyu could tell that she was jealous. Chapter 102. She's an insignificant person. Chang Zhuyu liked Fang Shue's little temper. Her attitude showed that she cared about him and liked him. She's just a secretary. Her father is one of the shareholders of the company. If you don't like her, you can transfer her out of her position and not see her again. If it was in the past, Chang Zhuyu wouldn't have cared about anyone's feelings. He would have just sent her packing. But recently, the Chang family's stock price had plummeted. They had lost a lot of money. In order to appease the shareholders, he couldn't just fire her. Chang Zhuyu led Fang Shui to the leather chair behind his desk and let her sit down. Fang Shui's eyes darkened when she heard that Chang Zhuyu only wanted to transfer her out of the company and not fire her. She sat on the chair and looked down to see the steaming hot coffee on the table. Fang Shui thought about it and knew that it was left by the woman who had provoked her just now. Chang Zhuyu saw Fang Shui's gaze on the coffee. He touched the rim of the cup politely and handed it to Fang Shui. "Have some coffee. The temperature is just right." Fang Shui took it and took a sip. She put it down and pursed her lips. "It's too bitter." Chang Zhuyu said dotingly, "I'll make you a cup." He took the cup of coffee and poured it out. He went to the pantry and personally made Fang Shui a cup of coffee. He knew Fang Shui's favorite coffee by heart. He had practiced it thousands of times. Many people saw them along the way. They didn't dare to say anything in front of Chang Zhuyu. They only whispered to each other after Chang Zhuyu made the coffee and returned to the office. "President Chang is so nice to Miss Fang," someone said with admiration. "Yeah, he even made coffee for Miss Fang. President Chang dotes on her so much. Miss Fang is so lucky. Miss Fang even came to see President Chang personally. They are so loving." The group of people talked at once. Suddenly, someone said, "No matter how loving they are, they're still scumbags and bitches." The voices came to an abrupt end. They looked at each other in dismay, but no one bothered to ask which warrior had said it. They didn't say anything else, but rather awkwardly dispersed. Chang Zhuyu didn't know what was going on outside the office, nor did he care. All he could think about was Fang Shui. He handed the coffee to Fang Shui. Try it. I made it for you. Fang Shui's lips curled into a smile. Brother Chang, your coffee suits my taste the best. Chang Zhuyu said proudly, of course. Shui, why are you here? What's the matter? Fang Shui's eyes sparkled as she looked at him, but her tone was cold. Can't I come to you for no reason? Of course not. I'm very happy that you came to see me. Chang Zhuyu held Fang Shui Ruo's hand affectionately. I wish that you could come every day. Fang Shui turned her head slightly, but she didn't look very happy. What's wrong? Did someone bully you? Fang Shui Ruo shook her head. Chang Zhuyo's heart ached. Shui, don't worry. I'll make sure you get justice. Of course, he knew about Shui's current predicament. Shui's manager had already mentioned it to him. In order not to let Shui suffer, he even asked her manager not to accept any resources for her during this period. Those low-quality resources were not worthy of Shui. He didn't want Shui to suffer. As for the company, there had been a lot of trouble recently, so they couldn't provide good resources at the moment. Chang Zhuyu was also held accountable by the company's shareholders. He often felt angry. When Shui had created so many benefits for the company, who didn't pamper and protect her? Now that she was in trouble, everyone wanted to get rid of her after she'd outlived her usefulness. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't have absolute authority, he would have fired all of them. However, this didn't mean that he would deal with them in the future. When the Chang family recovered, he would deal with them one by one. Fang Shui Ruo had suffered so much, but she still swallowed the bitter fruit. She had been like this since she was young. Even if she was bullied, she wouldn't say anything. She would silently endure it and even force a smile. Chang Zhuyo's heart ached. Fang Shuiruo looked indifferent. I used to be so busy that my feet didn't even touch the ground. Now that I have time, I can spend more time with my family. She paused, then her lips curled into a smile. I'll also spend time with you. Chang Zhuyu would naturally be happy if Fang Shui could spend more time with him. However, he didn't want to see Fang Shui unhappy. It was all because of that evil woman, Fu Yun Ruo. Fang Shui Ruo took 2 sips of coffee and said in distress, I wanted to stay at home to spend time with my family, but uncle urged me to get married. I had no choice but to come out. Her voice was a little mischievous. I could only come here to hide in peace. This way, uncle and the others won't urge me. Chang Zhuyo's eyes lit up when he heard the word urge. Shui, you agree to get married? Fang Shui Ruo realized that she had misspoken. Her face was slightly red with embarrassment. No. Chang Zhuyu promised excitedly. Shui, don't worry. I will give you the wedding of the century. All the women in the world will be envious of you. Fang Shui Ruo heard Chang Zhuyo's description of a beautiful future. Her fair cheeks blushed and her curly eyelashes hid the emotions in her eyes. Chang Zhuyu had wanted to marry Shui for a long time. Ever since they got engaged, he would propose to her from time to time. However, Shui seemed to be hesitant and refused to agree. Chang Zhuyu couldn't bear to force her. He would propose from time to time and wait for the day when she would agree. It wasn't easy for Shui to change her mind. Chang Zhuyu couldn't wait to set the wedding date so that he could bring the beauty home as soon as possible. However, his rationality prevented him from doing so. Now wasn't a good time. If the Chang family hadn't been in so much trouble recently, he would have held the wedding of the century soon. After this, he would wholeheartedly prepare the most unforgettable wedding for Shui. I haven't seen uncle and auntie in a long time. I wonder if they are doing well. As a junior, I'm sorry that I didn't visit them often. Chang Zhuyo's expression became unnatural. He continued, Father has been busy with the company recently. He went on a business trip. Mother also went on a trip to relax. He was the one who forced his mother to go on a trip to relax. Since this year, his mother had been treating Shui coldly. She felt that Shui was the reason why the Chang family was in so much trouble. No matter how unhappy Chang Zhuyu was, he couldn't change his mother's attitude. He asked her to leave the capital so that she wouldn't give Shui a hard time. After the Chang family's affairs were settled, he believed that his mother would revert to her previous attitude. However, Fang Shui noticed Chang Zhuyou's unnatural expression. A dark glint flashed across her eyes. At first, the master and madam of the Chang family praised her for bringing good luck to her husband. They were very satisfied with her and couldn't wait for her to marry into the family. However, now that her reputation was damaged, they were treating her coldly. Fang Shui pretended not to notice. She smiled and said, "It's good for Auntie to go on a trip to relax." Then, she asked with concern, "Is the company's business difficult to solve?" "It's not difficult. Don't worry," Chang Zhuyu said confidently. Fang Shui believed him. All these years, the Chang family had developed rapidly under his leadership. They had completed many big projects and everyone in the Chang family was convinced that he was the future heir. She looked at him with admiration. "Brother Chang, you're amazing." Chang Zhuyou's vanity instantly swelled. In front of the woman he loved, he was extremely confident. "There's a charity banquet tomorrow night. Come with me." Fang Shueruo pondered for a moment before revealing a smile. "All right." Pausing for a moment, she hesitated. "Will sister and the others be going as well?" At this charity gala, there would be a lot of celebrities showing their faces, right? Wen is really successful now. Everyone in the industry is talking about her and praising her for being a very smart child. When she grows up, she will definitely be the second Sai Yu. Fang Shui was sincerely happy for Wen. Then, she said regretfully, "It's a pity that I didn't get chosen as the female lead. Otherwise, I would have been able to work with Wen." When Chang Zhuyu heard this, he suddenly remembered something unpleasant. When he found out that Shui was auditioning for this film, he had tried to invest in her directly. However, the film crew had rejected his investment. Chang Zhuyu had done his research and found out that Sai Yu had invested in this Xianxia drama. There was no room for anyone else to interfere. Sai Yu was indeed his nemesis. When he thought of this, Chang Zhuyou's eyes flashed fiercely. Fang Shui wanted to say something but hesitated. "There are some things that I don't know if I should tell you. What is there that can't be said between us?" Chang Zhuyu asked gently. "Sai Yu and my sister. When is their child?" Fang Shui quickly added, "I think they don't want to announce it. You have to keep it a secret too. Otherwise, I will be angry." When Chang Zhuyu heard this, he felt even more uncomfortable. He disliked the child even more. "Don't worry. I know what to do." He had to make good use of this information. Fu Yun and Wen were on set. It was very hot outside. Even if they were sitting under a parasol with a big fan blowing on them, she still felt hot. This filming was much more difficult than the last time. Last time, they had basically filmed indoors and relied on post-production special effects. This time, they had to film outdoors frequently, especially under the sun. Fu Yun's heart ached when she saw Wen's flushed cheeks and sweaty face. There were a few times when she wanted to stop filming. However, when she saw how happy Wen was, she couldn't bring herself to say it. She could only prepare more drinks and desserts to cool down. Fortunately, the director was very kind. He was afraid that the child's body couldn't take it, so he tried his best not to let him be under the sun and let him rest more often. Sai Yu also sat under a parasol and blew on the fan with them. At first, when they saw this famous actor appearing on set every day, the director and the staff were flattered. However, after seeing him a lot, they got used to it. Sai Yu saw that Fu Yun was staring at the filming site not far away. He, a handsome man with a strong presence, was completely ignored. He deeply felt that if he were to compete with Wen for her attention, he would have no chance of winning. Sai Yu said to Fu Yun, "There is a charity banquet tonight. Do you want to go and take a look?" "Charity banquet?" Fu Yun turned her head and looked over. Sai Yu said, "It is started by a senior who is of virtue and prestige. Although it is inevitable that there will be some shows, there will be some really good deeds." The original owner of this body had been to a charity banquet before. However, it only existed in her memory. It was like looking at flowers in the fog. She really wanted to go and take a look. However, when she calculated her savings, She realized in despair that she did not have much savings on hand. The amount that she could take out was only about 200,000 yuan. There will be an auction at that time. You can see if there is anything you like. The proceeds from the auction will be donated. It's good to bring the child to take a look. Sai Yu wanted to spend some time with the two of them. However, when he saw that she kept hesitating, he gave a reason that Fu Yun would definitely not reject. Sure enough, when Fu Yun heard that she could bring Wen to take a look, she was even more tempted. She nodded without hesitation. If it's okay to bring the child, then let's go. Children needed to experience more to broaden their horizons. Sai Yu really didn't know whether to be happy or depressed. After Wen finished filming a scene, the director smiled and announced the break. Immediately, an assistant came forward to hold an umbrella for Wen. Wen jumped under the umbrella and ran over with her assistant. Mom. Fu Yun hurriedly passed the iced mung bean paste that was still cold to Wen. Quickly drink a few mouthfuls to cool down. This was the mung bean paste that the chef in the hotel had personally made. The mung bean paste was soft, sticky, and extremely sweet. Fu Yun originally wanted to make the mung bean paste herself, but the chef made it better than her, so she didn't do anything unnecessary. Wen held the thermos flask and gulped down a lot of water before she stopped and burped. She felt that all the heat in her body had evaporated. Mom, don't wait for me outside. Just wait for me at the hotel. Wen's cheeks were still red. His heart ached for his mother. It was such a hot day. How cool would it be to wait in the hotel room with the air conditioning on? Staying outside, even the air was hot. Fu Yun tapped his nose. No, I want to be with my baby. She had promised Wen that she would be by his side when he was filming. She couldn't go back on her word. All right. Sigh, his mother was just too clingy. Wen looked helpless on the surface, but he was very pleased inside. You don't have any scenes to film tonight, right? No, Wen replied. The director basically didn't arrange any scenes for him at night. He needed to sleep more and grow taller quickly. There's a charity gala tonight. Do you want to go? Fu Yun asked for Wen's opinion. Wen's eyes lit up. Yes. Fu Yun smiled. Okay. Then she looked at Sai Yu. I'll leave the rest to you. Sai Yu smiled and nodded. Wen looked at Sai Yu. What? He actually wanted to go with Sai Yu? Could he go back on his word? It was impossible for him to go back on his word. Sai Yu communicated with the director, and after finishing Wen's scenes early, he left the set with the two of them. The two of them had been outside in the sun for the entire day. Sai Yu arranged a skincare treatment for them and let them have a good night's sleep. Fu Yun and Wen lay down comfortably. When they woke up, their faces were fresh and moist. They looked tender and didn't feel the stinging pain of being sunburned at all. It was extremely comfortable. The effect was too good. Fu Yun asked Sai Yu where he found the skincare agency, and she noted it down so that she could look for them for skincare in the future. Then the three of them went to have dinner together. They put on the evening gowns that had been sent over and got into the car to set off. Sai Yu also put on a suit. More than half an hour later, the car stopped at the entrance of a luxurious hotel. Fu Yun and Wen got out of the car. She casually looked around and saw many high-end cars coming in and out. She saw some well-dressed successful people and rich women. After Sai Yu got out of the car, the valet of the hotel helped to drive the car away. The three of them walked to the entrance. Sai Yu handed over an invitation and was respectfully invited in. Wen did not look around. His back was straight, and he walked with the wind, looking very imposing. This was an auction and also a place to expand one's network. There were already many people in the hall, and everyone was dressed beautifully. Sai Yu and the other two good-looking people walked in and attracted a lot of attention. Many directors and celebrities who had good relations with Sai Yu came over to greet Sai Yu and the others. The senior management of Apple Entertainment was also there. Fu Yun realized that it wasn't appropriate for her and Wen to follow Sai Yu in. Wouldn't she become his female companion? Fu Yun lowered her head and looked at Wen. She still had a family to feed. However, When Sai Yu introduced them, Fu Yun didn't want to be separated from Sai Yu. She could only smile and exchange pleasantries. Yes, Sai Yu might want to use this opportunity to introduce her and Wen to her. In the future, Wen would need these connections to continue working in the entertainment industry. At first, Fu Yun felt a little uncomfortable. Not long after, she saw many familiar people. It turned out that some big shots in the live broadcast industry were also there. A few of them were Fu Yun's acquaintances. Not only that, many successful people from Meimu Charity took the initiative to greet Fu Yun. Only then did Fu Yun realize that many of these big shots had followed her live broadcast and were her fans. After greeting them, Fu Yun and Wen stood together with the people in the live broadcast industry. Regardless of social status, there were different circles. Fu Yun felt that she belonged to this circle. When Sai Yu saw this, she also followed Fu Yun very freely. Although Brother Fatty and the others were part of the top group of people in the live broadcast industry, in front of Sai Yu, the super best actor in the entertainment industry, they were still a little inferior. At first, they were a little restrained, but soon, they were chatting and laughing with Sai Yu. When Fu Yun saw that Sai Yu had integrated into her circle so easily, she couldn't help but take a few more glances. Not long after, there was a commotion at the entrance. Everyone subconsciously looked over. Chang Zhuyu and Fang Shui, who was dressed to the nines, made a grand entrance. Fu Yun Ruo was stunned. She thought, how did the halo that seemed to be glowing do it? It's too eye-catching. When the others saw the two of them, they knew that Fu Yun wasn't on good terms with them, so they didn't go up to greet them like the others. When Fu Yun saw that the male and female leads were surrounded by the stars, she thought to herself, even if Fang Shui is banned by others, she still has the halo of the female lead. When her friends saw Fu Yun looking over, they were afraid that she would be in a bad mood, so they quickly changed the topic. I heard that Wen's movie is going to be released soon. When the time comes, I will definitely bring my family to support it. Me too. I saw that the reviews online are very good. Hey, why don't you give us some spoilers? Fu Yun smiled and said, that won't do. I still have to see it for myself. Only then will I feel surprised. That makes sense. I don't care about the others, but you can't spoil it for me. Another friend laughed and said, I want to see it for myself. Okay, then I won't spoil it either. While Fu Yun was chatting and laughing, Chang Zhuyu and Fang Shui had already noticed Fu Yun and the others. Chang Zhuyu and the others walked towards Fu Yun and the others. When they were halfway there, a beautiful woman wearing a tight black dress stopped Chang Zhuyu. President Chang, why didn't you wait for me before coming? You promised my father that you would take good care of me. What nonsense are you talking about? Fu Yun couldn't help but take a few more glances. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind and she remembered some of the original plot. Later on, she only remembered that Fang Shui got married because she was pregnant. When she saw this scene, she thought that there was an episode in the original plot. It seems that there was a woman who was interested in the male lead and wanted to replace Fang Shuiruo. Then, during a banquet, she took the opportunity to drug the male lead and wanted to take the opportunity to succeed. In the end, it was a freak combination of factors that helped the male lead and female lead be together. Could it be this party? Ruoruo, what are you looking at? When Sai Yu saw that Fu Yun kept looking at Chang Zhuyu, his eyes darkened. He couldn't help but wonder if Ruoruo had been avoiding his feelings because she still had feelings for Chang Zhuyu. Sai Yu looked at Chang Zhuyu and narrowed his eyes slightly. Fu Yun turned around. The auction is about to start. Shall we go in? The auction site was not in the same place as the main hall. They still had to move. Okay. Fu Yun nodded. He held Wen's hand and followed Sai Yu into the auction site. Fu Yun couldn't help but take a few more glances. This was the original plot. She didn't expect to see it with her own eyes one day. This made her realize that the plot was coming to an end. Wen also took a few more glances. He had heard many rumors about how the Chang couple had been in love for decades. It turned out that this young Master Chang also had other romantic encounters. Sai Yu had been paying attention to Fu Yun. When he saw that she was absent-minded, he secretly gritted his teeth. This stupid woman. She didn't like such an outstanding and devoted man. Instead, she liked someone who was out of line. What kind of taste did she have? Fu Yun didn't know that Sai Yu had misunderstood. She noticed that not long before the auction started, Chang Zhuyu and Fang Shui had just entered the venue. Fang Shui sat in her seat with a cold expression while Chang Zhuyu humbly tried to curry favor with her. Fu Yun turned around and didn't look again. Fortunately, they were seated far away from each other. She didn't have to face them all the time. Soon, the auction started. Wen was short. He tried to raise his head but couldn't see the front stage clearly. His line of sight was blocked. When Sai Yu saw him poking his head out, he grabbed him by the waist and placed him on his lap. Wen's time was raised to a higher height, and he could see it clearly in an instant. He moved his little butt and adjusted himself into a comfortable position. He thought to himself that he was the one who wanted to be the cushion. He didn't ask for it. He couldn't see clearly when he sat back down. If his mother carried him, she would be very tired. Since that was the case, he could only let Sai Yu be tired. One by one, the collectibles were moved onto the stage. Other than the expensive calligraphy and paintings, there were very few antiques. Most of the antiques were handwritten by famous celebrities. Fu Yun looked at them. They were quite artistic. She suddenly thought that she could donate a pot of orchids to the auction. This was also a good deed. Sigh. Why didn't she think of this before? It was too late now. If there was a charity event next time, she would definitely remember. Chang Zhuyu bid for a lot of things in one go. They were all for Fang Shui. Fang Shui's expression softened. Sai Yu saw that Fu Yun was just looking and didn't raise her paddle. He said, "If there's anything you like, you can bid for it." Fu Yun calculated her savings and shook her head. Forget it. She would just donate some money. The next item was a crystal diamond in the shape of a flower. The exquisite and transparent diamond necklace sparkled under the lights. It was magnified by the projection and looked very beautiful. Wen's eyes lit up when he saw it. He decided that he would bid for this crystal diamond and give it to his mother. Wen calculated the amount of money she had and puffed out her chest confidently. Chapter 103. After the host on the stage introduced the item, the auction officially began. Wen said domineeringly, "Mom, I'll bid for this crystal diamond and give it to you." Fu Yun Ruo beamed with joy. The little guy was still so small, but he was already so sensible and filial to his mother. "I'm already very satisfied that you have such intentions. Wen, keep this money for yourself." Fu Yun Ruo said gently, "Don't you want to save it for your future capital?" Fu Yun Ruo knew Wen's ambition. He was going to be a big boss in the future, so he needed to save up his capital now. Wen said confidently, "There's no hurry. I can earn money later." His mother was the most important thing now. Moreover, he was still young. There were many opportunities to save money. When he became famous, he could earn it back immediately. Not only could he do some good deeds, but he could also give his mother a gift to make her happy. It was killing two birds with one stone. Many people were interested in this crystal diamond. After all, who didn't have a female family member? Wouldn't it be a surprise if they bought it and gave it to someone? Because this crystal diamond was pure and clear and had a large gram count, and it was personally carved by a world-famous carving master, it could be considered as one of the more expensive items in this auction. The starting bid was 500,000 yuan, and each increment must not be less than 50,000 yuan. Soon, someone bid 550,000 yuan, 600,000 yuan. 650,000 yuan. Wen was ready to make a move. He raised his sign high and said, 700,000 yuan, 1,500,000 yuan. They looked over and saw that it was Chang Zhuyou's sign. He directly doubled the price. The value of this diamond was about 1,200,000 yuan. 1,500,000 yuan was already more than its value. Whether it was to give face to the Chang family or because they felt that it was beyond their budget, Everyone gave up. Only a few people were hesitating. When unconsciously puffed up his face. It was better to raise the price peacefully, but this person didn't play by the rules. When also raised the price 2 million yuan. 3 million yuan. When was angry. He only had less than 4 million yuan in his little treasury. He couldn't afford any more, but how could he lose to someone he hated? Moreover, he had already boasted that he would buy it and give it to his mother. 3,500,000. This had already far exceeded the value of the auction item itself. The others did not participate, and they all watched as the young master of the Chang family competed with a child. Children? When they saw the angry child sitting on Sai Yu's lap, they couldn't help but smile. What an adorable child. Look at his chubby little face, white and tender, and his facial features were exquisite and beautiful. The elders loved children like this the most, and their hearts softened. Then, they looked at Chang Zhuyu, who refused to give in to a child. Many people muttered in their hearts. It's not like it's something rare or has any special meaning. What's wrong with letting a kid have a go? Bidding with a kid seemed to be very capable, yet he actually dared to provoke him? He was too narrow-minded. When Chang Zhuyu saw the three people he disliked, he did not think of anything else. He subconsciously wanted to compete with them. Who cared if the one bidding with him was a child? Xuera had seen the shareholder's daughter pestering him several times, and it made Xuera angry. Although he was happy that Xuera cared about his performance, Xuera was also unhappy about it. They were currently in a cold war. In order to make her happy, Chang Zhuyu had already bid for many items at a high price tonight. Now, this was the item he wanted to buy the most, because he would not let Fu Yun get what she wanted. This crystal diamond was most suitable for his Xuera. Therefore, Chang Zhuyu did not care if the person bidding was a child. He would only think that it was Fu Yun who ordered him to do so. 5 million. He gave Fu Yun Ruo a provocative look. Fang Shui could not help but frown. Brother Chang, since sister likes it, why don't you give it to her? Chang Zhuyu said helplessly, you are too aloof and too weak. You will be bullied. How could he watch Xuera be bullied? This jewelry belonged to Xuera. When? He was so angry that he wanted to cry. He did not have that much money, so he could not bid for it as a gift for his mother. Fu Yun comforted him. The price is too high. It's not worth it. We don't want it. Baby will buy a better one for mommy next time. Fu Yun was also very unhappy. She did not know what this male lead was thinking, but he was still looking at her with such a hateful gaze. When pursed his lips and did not say anything. After being pampered and coaxed by everyone around him for 4 to 5 years, he felt that the sky was falling when he was wronged. He was very upset. When his mother comforted him, he wanted to lean into her arms and act coquettishly. When reached out to Fu Yun. He looked at her with watery eyes and asked for a hug. Fu Yun turned sideways and carried Wen over. Sai Yu cooperated and sent Wen over. Then, before the auctioneer finalized the deal, he raised the bidding sign. 6 million. Fu Yun and Wen turned their heads at the same time. When Chang Zhuyu saw Sai Yu, he thought of what Xuera said. That little brat was their son. Calculating the time, they had not officially annulled their engagement at that time. His eyes turned red. No matter how much he hated Fu Yunruo, no man would be able to tolerate a woman who was labeled as his to have a relationship with another man. No man could accept being cuckolded. Every time he thought of this, his face turned green. He raised the bidding sign. 7 million. Sai Yu raised the bidding sign. 8 million. Chang Zhuyu immediately followed. 9 million. Sai Yu raised the bidding sign hesitantly. 1,000. 1,100. 1,300. 1,500. Fu Yun was stunned. The two of them seemed to be competing with each other. They were chasing after each other and did not give anyone a chance to react. She had just comforted when the price had soared to 10 million and was still rising. The auctioneer was so excited that his face turned red. 15 million. 15 million. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? 15 million going once. When Fu Yun saw that Sai Yu was about to raise the bidding sign again, she hurriedly shouted, Sai Yu. Even if he was rich, he should not be spending his money like this. Sai Yu turned to look at Fu Yun. He blinked and smiled at her. Then, he put down the bidding sign. 15 million going twice. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? Sai Yu turned to look at Chang Zhuyu with a faint smile on his face. He even gestured for Chang Zhuyu to continue. 15 million going thrice. Deal. The gavel was slammed and the deal was sealed. Before Chang Zhuyu could taste the taste of victory, the auction house was already in an uproar. Although this auction had a charitable nature, everyone knew in their hearts that generally, the auction price would be 20% or 30% higher than the market price, unless there were two or more parties that wanted the item. Only then would they bid for it at a high price. Although this piece of jewelry was exquisite, it was not rare. With 15 million, one could customize a set of top-grade jewelry that was more expensive and better than this piece of jewelry. To bid for it at a price that was more than 10 times the original price, this person from the Chang family must have gone crazy. Sai Yu was the first to applaud him, celebrating that he had won the bid for the item that he wanted. Everyone else reacted and congratulated him regardless of what they were thinking. Fu Yun looked at Sai Yu, who was smiling sincerely. She quickly realized that he had bid for Chang Zhuyu on purpose just now to make him spend a lot of money. She could not help but laugh and secretly gave Sai Yu a thumbs up. Compared to buying the item at a high price, it was better to let the other party spend a lot of money. Sai Yu was really too evil, but she liked it. Chang Zhuyu's mind went blank. When he realized how much money he had spent, his face instantly turned ugly. Previously, he had bid for many small items at a high price. In total, he had spent 7 to 8 million. Including this, he had more than 20 million in cash. In the past, he would not have cared about 20 million at all. However, because of the company's problems recently, they had to pay a lot of money to fill the hole. Chang Zhuyu could not take out so much cash at once. If he wanted to liquidate his other assets, it would be too late. Chang Zhuyu called his assistant and asked him to transfer 20 million from the company's account to his account first. He only had about 10 million in his account, so it was not enough to cover the expenses this time. His assistant was a little hesitant. President Chang, our funds are a little tight. Do what I tell you to do. Cut the crap. Chang Zhuyu said coldly and hung up the phone. Chang Zhuyu's face turned extremely ugly. He felt that everyone was whispering and pointing at him. He instantly tightened his grip on his phone. I heard that the Chang family's company is in trouble. It seems that the rumors are true. It should be a small problem. Otherwise, they would not have casually taken out 20 million. Although the assets of aristocratic families were in the hundreds of billions, most of it was in various assets, shares, and other things. Capital only accounted for a part of it. Everyone had seen the Chang family's recent troubles and guessed that they had put in a lot of money. However, even if they were short on funds, they were still a big company. No one dared to reveal anything easily. Now that the Chang family could casually spend 10 million on an item, it meant that their financial situation was not as bad as they had imagined. Fang Shui could not care less about the Cold War. Seeing Chang Zhuyu's strange expression, he asked with concern, "What's wrong?" After a pause, she said, "I don't really like these things. There's no need to waste so much money. Don't do this again." When Chang Zhuyu heard Fang Shui's words, his expression softened instantly. He said gently, "What's given to you is never wasted." The auction continued, but it was coming to an end soon. Sai Yu had her eyes on an inkstone from the Ming and Qing dynasties. It was the most valuable item in tonight's auction. It had been donated by an antique collector for charity, but it had only been sold for 5 million yuan. This time, Chang Zhuyu did not dare to raise his paddle casually. He was worried that Sai Yu would cheat him again. Tonight's spending had exceeded his expectations. If it had been in the past, he would not have had to worry about money. However, he was personally in charge of the company and knew the company's current predicament. The Chang family could not bring themselves to sell off their assets. Basically, They had used all their liquid funds to fill the hole. Recently, they had been struggling to make ends meet. When he saw that Sai Yu had won the auction, his expression darkened even more. Sai Yu was indeed his nemesis. Sai Yu had her eyes on the inkstone. She had bought it for Wen. After a year or two, her wrist would become stronger and she would be able to practice calligraphy. Yes, she could play with it first. There were better ones at home. Wen sat in Fu Yunruo's arms. He was comforted by his mother and saw that Sai Yu had stood up for him. He was in a good mood. He looked at Chang Zhuyu with a smug smile. Soon, the auction came to an end. As the last item was sold, the host of the auction gave a closing speech. The item with the highest price was naturally the crystal diamond that Chang Zhuyu had won. The host of the banquet expressed his gratitude. Finally, everyone left. Sai Yu carried Wen, who was still in Fu Yunruo's arms. She even mocked her. "Little fat pig, don't you know how heavy you are? Wouldn't it be tiring for her mother to carry her for so long?" Wen felt offended. She immediately frowned. "You are the fat pig. Big fat pig." Wen pressed down hard. Since he dared to call her fat, she would crush him. Sai Yu raised her eyebrows. "If I am the big fat pig, then you are the little fat pig. You are the big fat pig, I am not." The two of them were quarreling childishly. Fu Yunruo could not bear to watch. Were they both 3-year-old? Chang Zhuyu and Fang Shueruo walked towards them. They were obviously waiting for them at the exit. Fu Yunruo. Sai Yu stepped to the side and stood in front of Fu Yunruo. He confronted Chang Zhuyu. "Mr. Chang, please watch your distance." Sai Yu. Chang Zhuyu gritted his teeth. He clenched his fists and resisted the urge to punch him. "Oh, I almost forgot. I haven't congratulated you on winning the bid. Mr. Chang, you are really a philanthropist. You donated so much money to help more people," Sai Yu said sincerely. Chang Zhuyu snorted. "I can't compare to you. How much did you donate?" "Not much. I only donated 30 million yuan. Chang Zhuyu was speechless. "If you don't believe me, you can confirm it with Mr. Mu," Sai Yu added with a smile. Chang Zhuyu stared at Sai Yu so hard that his eyes were about to pop out. His eyes were bloodshot. Fang Shueruo looked at Fu Yunruo with a gentle expression. "Sister, when are you going to bring Wen home to visit uncle?" "Uncle, he misses you very much." Fu Yunruo could not be bothered to talk to her. She pretended not to hear her and ignored her. Fang Shueruo's eyes darkened. She forced a smile and said, "Brother Chang was just joking with you. Sister, if you like the crystal diamond, you can have it. We don't need it." Sai Yu said gently and politely, "If there is nothing else, please move aside. You are blocking our way." "Sai Yu, I will not let you off." Chang Zhuyu growled. Sai Yu did not take it to heart. He had heard this at least 3 times. In front of him, Chang Zhuyu could only talk back. Sai Yu gestured for Fu Yunruo to leave from the other side first. He then followed her and left together. "Sister." Fang Shueruo was about to stop them. "President Chang." A coquettish voice suddenly sounded from not far away. Fu Yunruo turned around and saw the seductive woman again. She walked over in her high heels. Before she could take a second look, Sai Yu put a hand on her shoulder and urged her, "Let's go." They quickly got into the car. Fu Yunruo could not help but look at Sai Yu. Why did she feel that he did not want her to interact with Chang Zhuyu and the others? Actually, she was curious about how the original plot would develop. She had been here for so many years, but this was the first time she had encountered the original plot. Sai Yu did not say anything and asked the driver to send them back. It was almost 11 o'clock. It was past Wen's usual bedtime. Ruo fell asleep as soon as he got into the car. "Mom." Ruo's eyelids could not open. He called out softly, sounding a little disappointed. He had promised to give his mother a gift, but he had not kept his word. Fu Yunruo patted Ruo's body rhythmically. "Mom is here, baby. Mom loves Wen the most. I love you too," When Ruo's voice had just finished when his mother patted him rhythmically. His consciousness slowly became blurry and he fell asleep. Fu Yun Ruo patted him for a while. She only pulled her hand away when he fell asleep. Did you really donate 30 million yuan? Fu Yun Ruo asked curiously. Sai Yu nodded. Mr. Mu is a real philanthropist. We often work together. His family had a foundation dedicated to charity. Fu Yun Ruo sighed. She felt that the money she had donated was not even a fraction of what the other party had donated. However, charity should be done within one's means. No matter how much one donated, the intention was the same. Sai Yu Ruo and Fu Yun Ruo did not speak anymore. It was very quiet in the car, and only soothing music could be heard. The car arrived at the hotel garage. Sai Yu Ruo got out of the car and gently carried her into the elevator. Fu Yun Ruo paid attention to Wen all the way. He was lying on Sai Yu's shoulder, with one side of his face pressed down. His small mouth was slightly open and he was sleeping soundly. Fu Yun Ruo's heart swelled just by looking at Wen. When they reached the door, Fu Yun Ruo found the room card and opened the door. She then inserted the room card and the soft light turned on. Sai Yu carried Wen into the room and carefully placed him on the bed. Fu Yun Ruo turned on the air conditioner, then went into the bathroom to get a basin of warm water and took out a small towel. She whispered, "He has been outside for a whole day in such hot weather. He is sweating all over. Wipe him and make him feel more comfortable." The little guy was sleeping soundly. It would be too noisy to bathe him and wake him up. It would be better to wipe him with a wet towel. Sai Yu Ruo also lowered his voice. "Let me do it." Fu Yun Ruo glanced at him and did not refuse. She handed the small towel to him. Sai Yu wrung the wet towel. Fu Yun Ruo saw that he was wringing it so dry. She hurriedly said, "You don't have to wring it so hard. If it is too dry, it will be uncomfortable if you can't wipe it." Sai Yu wet it again and wrung it gently. This time, it was still wet. Finally, under Fu Yun Ruo's instructions, he wrung out a suitable dry and wet towel. Fu Yun Ruo had already gently removed Wen's small suit, revealing his fair and soft little body. It was obvious that it was Sai Yu's first time doing such a thing. He was a little clumsy. He had already carefully wiped Wen's back and hands, but it was obvious that Wen was still uncomfortable. He furrowed his little eyebrows and looked very unhappy. Sai Yu moved even more gently. Not long after, Wen's little eyebrows relaxed. Fu Yun Ruo tilted her head and looked at Sai Yu's focused expression. She suddenly felt that it was actually quite good for Wen to have a father. After Sai Yu wiped Wen's entire body, he practiced changing him into pajamas. As he was afraid of waking the child up, his whole body was tense and his movements were very careful. After taking care of the child, Sai Yu's back was already drenched in sweat. Fu Yun Ruo went forward and covered Wen with a blanket. "Let's go out." Sai Yu carried the basin out and poured the water. After leaving the room, Fu Yun Ruo heaved a sigh of relief and her tone returned to normal. She looked at Sai Yu and said, "Thank you for your hard work today." Sai Yu shook his head. He looked at Fu Yun Ruo and said sincerely, "Thank you for your hard work." Fu Yun Ruo was confused. She did not understand what Sai Yu meant at that moment. Sai Yu did not say anything else. He felt that it was very difficult for Fu Yun Ruo to take care of the child alone. He had only personally helped her a little, but he deeply felt that it was not easy to take care of a child. Then, when the child was younger, wouldn't it be even more difficult and tiring? Sai Yu was both grateful and heartbroken. He regretted that he did not check on her situation. If he had found out earlier, he could have helped take care of the child earlier. But on the other hand, he felt that it was not too late to appear now. It was still not too late. From now on, he could help more and take care of the child together. Fu Yun Ruo looked up and saw that Sai Yu had no intention of leaving. A few words suddenly flashed across her mind. A man and a woman alone in a room in the middle of the night. She suddenly felt that the atmosphere was strange. Fu Yun Ruo felt a little uncomfortable and said tactfully, "It's very late. Okay, I'll stay for a while." Sai Yu lowered his head and looked at Fu Yun Ruo. His thoughts turned and he thought of his previous guess. His expression gradually became serious. What's wrong? Fu Yunruo saw the situation and started to feel nervous. You still have feelings for that man surnamed Chang? Huh? Sai Yu frowned and said, in the past, it was fine if you had poor taste. That was because you didn't have enough outstanding men by your side. Now, you have a man surnamed Chang by your side who is better than him in all aspects. You should focus on your side. Sai Yu was just short of directly saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm the one who deserves to be liked the most. No, did you misunderstand something? Fu Yunruo reacted and did not know whether to laugh or cry. Since when did I have feelings for him? God, where did this misunderstanding come from? Had she ever expressed her feelings for that man surnamed Chang? Sai Yu said unhappily, you peeked at him 9 times tonight. If not for the fact that she still had feelings for him in her heart, why would she peek at him so many times? Fu Yunruo. Did I? 9 times so many. This is really a misunderstanding. She was just curious about the plot. No, how did Sai Yu count it so clearly? Could it be that he had been paying attention to her the entire night? Ruo, I can accept that you don't want to talk about feelings now. I have a lifetime to wait. Sai Yu looked at Fu Yunruo with a focused and gentle gaze. But if you have such thoughts one day, you can only choose me. Sai Yu's words were a little domineering. Fu Yunruo avoided his gaze and muttered in her heart, how is this a multiple choice question? It's too domineering. Fu Yunruo avoided this topic. It's very late. I want to rest. Sai Yu did not want to push Fu Yunruo too hard. He originally thought that he could take it slow, but now, when she looked at another man, he was extremely concerned. He was a little impatient. How could he stand by Fu Yunruo's side in a justifiable manner? Sai Yu was thinking about how to declare his ownership. Ruo, remember this. No one can force me to do anything. It's only up to me whether I'm willing or not. Then, Sai Yu changed the topic. Of course, now, someone can force me. I will listen to her. Fu Yunruo's heart was flustered when she heard this. She hurriedly said again, I'm tired and want to rest. Good night. Then, she quickly rushed into the bathroom and locked the door. Sai Yu did not know whether to laugh or cry. He walked over and knocked on the door. There was no movement inside. Sai Yu smiled and said, good night. Then, he turned around and left. Fu Yunruo heaved a sigh of relief when she heard the door open and close in the bathroom. She touched her rapidly beating heart and looked at herself in the mirror. Her cheeks were red. Fu Yunruo could not help but touch her face. It was boiling hot. How could she not know what Sai Yu meant? He said that no one could make him compromise. He confessed to her that he wanted to be with her because he liked her, not because of the child. The meaning behind his words was that he would listen to the person he liked and do whatever she asked him to do. Fu Yunruo did not know what she wanted. Her plan had been forcefully interrupted by Sai Yu and she was at a crossroads in her life. Originally, she had already planned to raise Wen wholeheartedly and not get married again. She felt that being alone was quite carefree. Now, she had the ability to earn money and live a good life. In the future, she could let go of her child and let him fly away to explore the world. She could travel all over the world, taste all the delicacies in the world, and enjoy all the beautiful scenery in the world. This kind of life would be very happy. In the future, when she was old and her child had a family and career, she could return to the village, rent a piece of land, and continue to raise flowers. But now, a handsome man with a good figure and a good personality wanted to be with her. Most importantly, he was the child's father. Fu Yunruo was shamefully moved, but she was also a little conflicted. She did not know what she was hesitating about. Perhaps she did not dare to take this step easily. Forget it. It was better not to think too much. Looking at Wen's attitude, it was still awkward. She would think about it again when the child had completely accepted it. Speaking of which, what exactly was Wen feeling awkward about? Fu Yunruo's thoughts instantly jumped to Wen. She actually did not find out anything until now. When, this little guy, really hid it well. The next day, Fu Yun Ruo, who was not in good spirits, was woken up by the energetic Wen. Her thoughts were in a mess last night. She tossed and turned until very late at night. At this moment, she still could not open her eyes. Mom, get up. I'm up. Fu Yun Ruo looked at the time. It was only 6 o'clock. It was still very early. Seeing that Wen Ruo was full of energy, she could not help but carry him to the bed. Sleep with Mom for a while more? Wen rolled around happily. Kaka smiled. Seeing that Fu Yun Ruo was indeed very sleepy, he said considerately, okay. Then, he was quietly hugged. Wen Ruo's big eyes rolled around. At a glance, he could tell that his mother had slept very late. He fell asleep early and did not know what happened after that. He was quite curious as to why he slept so late. Fu Yun Ruo did not sleep for long. After a short nap, she got up. After washing up, she walked out and saw Wen Ruo playing with the inkstone. Wen Ruo raised it for Fu Yun Ruo to see. Mom, isn't this the thing that uncle you bought last night? It was black and looked very simple. There was an inexplicable strange fragrance. Fu Yun Ruo looked at it. It was indeed. Maybe he forgot to take it away. She did not notice when it was placed on the table last night. Wen Ruo's eyes rolled. Was Uncle Yu in the room last night? Fu Yun Ruo. Why did he say it so ambiguously? He carried you up and even wiped your body. Fu Yun Ruo thought to herself. She did not have that much strength to carry the child up so easily. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.